Okay, I'd like to make notice that in our legal session, there were no actions taken. And at this point in time, we'll turn it over to the public comment section. Our first guest will be Mr. Ken Trivett, Executive Director of Kentucky Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yes, basketball. And would you introduce, make sure everybody knows
Basketball.
anybody with you?
Sorry.
The other one.
Yes, Jim Stewart's with
The
me.
bigger one, yeah, Jim Stiller. The most
Jim is a former Baytown player, Floyd County. And instead of telling you about a big district, which I'm proposing as part of the change in tournament structure, 2 districts instead of 1, or 4, 2 districts instead of 4 is our fundamental proposal. And the districts go back so far as a foundation of our house basketball evolution and the popularity of it, because rivalries were created from those big districts. And the rivalry didn't have to be Lafayette against Dunbar, for example. It could simply be Miller and Fed Street back in where I'm at. So a rivalry, when we think of rivalries, we think of the big ones, but we don't think of the fundamental rivalries that drew people out of their houses to come to the game where they could watch their teams play. We want to seed those districts, and the reason we want to seed them, those little schools deserve to have the big schools in their house too. And it's a fair thing where it's laid out there with tremendous integrity for the right reasons. And if you look at it and study it, I think you'll see we need to maintain our districts in a bigger fashion because consolidation has changed the dynamic of districts over the years tremendously. Go from 64 districts to 32. 2 districts per region. There'll be 8 or 9 teams in those regions. They would have to play each other twice. It gives you a schedule. It gives you fan interest. It is competitive, and it has so many positives. But I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to let Jim tell you about the Floyd County Conference and Floyd County districts, which were one and the same. Because once you have those big districts, you can make that a conference because the games are fundamentally built in. I mean, you're going to have, it's like 8 teams, you have 14 games. That's your conference. It's your district. And what does the conference do? It makes regular season games count. And regular season games that count, the press will jump on that. The revenue will increase. The travel will decrease. I challenge you, and I'm not saying this egotistically, to find fault in this plan. But there is no fault in it, in my opinion. It maintains the districts, maintains the regions, and gives a streamlined, you go from more to less to 1. And that's the way a tournament should be able to go. Because that's what you do. Everybody's got a shot. But you have to, it's a competitive environment, what it is. Jim, go ahead and let loose.
If you'll slow down a minute, I'll try to jump in there. He was supposed to tell me, and I'm going to go back to 1969 in Floyd County. Back in days, we had a lot of good teams. Our district, we had 8 teams in it. We played each other twice. Maytown was a top 10 team in that year. A Wayland team was in the top 20. McDowell had some really good, had a really good team that year. And what happens is every game we played, at least in the district, it was a full gym. The crowd was going crazy. The bands were playing, and every game meant something to us. We also had a preseason tournament that we started with the district. The 8 district teams played in the preseason, and that was a big deal. We played at Prestonbrook High School. The gym set 3,000 to 3,500. Gym was full for the preseason tournament, and it meant something to everybody. And as the season went along, we played most of our games in the district later on. Great competition. It didn't matter what gym you went to. Like if it was Garrett, Martin, it didn't matter. It was a full gym, and you knew they was going to be ready to play, and it was going to be a fight. We
Not
did
literally,
that.
Not literally.
Well, not literally. Well,
maybe something.
a couple of times. I mean, a couple of times there actually was. We did that, and the district. Now, the one thing I like Ken's plan is better. In our district, it was just a clear draw. You could literally have the 4 best teams in one bracket. And that part was not great. So I like the idea of seeding, and that's the part I like about this, about the districts that you'll be seeded. So when you go to regional that's a little bit fairer than what it was. And then the district, it was a full gym at Prestonsburg. All the schools did well, and the thing is, the way it worked, the schools made money as well in all this, and it was a big provider. And then the time we got to the regional tournament, it was really intense. And again, like the Wayland team I was talking about, we played them 5 times that year, and we beat them 4, I want to say, but they did get us at Wayland. But it really honed our skills, because playing important games like that throughout the season, it really honed our skills. So we were really ready. Time we got to state tournament, we beat Monticello, and we beat a very good Clark County team in the next round, and then Louisville Central was just too much for us in the semis. But I really believe part of why we were as good as we were is because of our district. And we played Lyon County, Mason County. We played a lot of really good teams. But really the best games that we had, and some of the toughest games we had, were right there in Floyd County against those district tournament teams. And it really helped us. I think it really helped us to get as good as we were. And that made a difference in our team.
You all produced numerous Division I prospects during that time too.
We did.
Numerous.
We did. But, especially the county wise, we had a lot of guys. Larry Hall from Martin, Bob Talent, Pat Talent, some guys from Maytown. My first cousins, they were really good.
I just want to go, Jim, if I couldn't interrupt, I just want to make sure that we hit the fundamentals of this proposal. And being a basketball coach, fundamentals are important because they'll serve you well when the heat gets on. This restores district tournament integrity, and as it relates to number of teams, no longer the 3-team district or a 4-team district. And I can promise you, when you go to a bigger district, you're going to have more competition. You're going to have more people get interested in basketball again. You're going to have rivalry, and you're going to make more money. It gives value to regular season games. They mean something. So much today of our attendance at local games, the games have no value, and thus people don't come out. They can sit on their butts on TV, watch TV, and not go to a high school game. You've got to create at the fundamental level that fire that was there in the past. And I cannot express to you how much it means to basketball's growth. The state tournament did not create basketball in this state, the interest. It was at the base level, those big districts that there were twice the number of schools at that time. It created a knowledge of the game and an interest in the game locally, fundamentally. And I think one of the things you have to do if you go to this plan, you have to get your local press buying into this and get them to promote basketball from the bottom up. And it transfers right up the line. People say, hey, that state tournament doesn't have as many fans. Blah, blah, blah. This will, I think, create a better fandom out there and will increase attendance at their state tournaments and regional tournaments. But most important, at the local school level. Rewards district tournament champions with a bye in the regional tournament. A regular season winner of the district tournament of 18 deserves a bye. They've earned something. You know what? That means something. The district winner. It gives value. That gives value to it. And they get a bye. The other teams will play in the semifinals. The winner and runner up go to the region. The runners up, the people who got defeated in the semifinals will play a play-in game before the final game of the district to go to the region. 2 games that will fill the house because those have value. So they're having to play their way in, win their way in. And of course, the one who wins the district, of course, goes on and sits waiting for them. And they cross play in the region. The 2 districts cross play, winner, runner up, and the play-in game winners. Rewards district championships, district tournament revenue increases to all schools. People talk about revenue today, how to get more revenue. Your district tournament is shared by everybody in the region, not just like most regional tournaments where they're shared by the teams that are involved. It goes to every school shared in district tournament. So more money will be made in the districts than you'll make in the regions. And the regions will still make their money. Renews rivalries, reduces travel expenses, which the superintendents will love, because why? You're playing your neighbors. You're playing people who are right there near you. And it means something to beat them, believe me. It means a lot. And so that will increase attendance, and by the games meaning something, I think it will increase money, but it also reduces travel. 14 games, and like, for example, you had 8 teams in your district. 7 of those games, that's 2 games each, that's 14 games. 7 of those travel things are close. They're not going far. They look at an immediate schedule. Every year you have a schedule already. It's those people thinking about. Now, the coaches don't like this, and I'll tell you why. They want to play where they want to play, when they want to play. But this makes them play those schools near them, and they have to go to that place, and they have to play them. And those smaller schools, that revenue from those games will be a part of their budget. That probably most of it. Plan is applicable to all team sports. Every team sport you have, other than football, could tie into this same thing. They all could be a part of it. Volleyball, basketball, not football. They're the only one that couldn't tie in. Baseball, softball, all of them that are team sports could follow these parameters. That makes it easy for travel. It also, the local media will be on top of this. Plan conference formation for basketball and other team sports possible. You can create conference. Say if you had a district that has 8 teams, that could be a conference. And all you have to do is give it a name, because your regular season games, and if you're playing each other twice, is your conference schedule as well. Now, why would you want a conference? Making regular season games mean more. Having something for the kids at the end of the year, conference player of the year, winner of the conference. And the way you get your overall winner of a conference, 2 districts, whoever wins, and the regular season, whoever wins your district, would play 1 game in a middle part of your region, and that would be your overall conference champion. Now, what would that money, you'd have a good gate for that game, for the overall conference championship. But what you also could do with that money, and I've said this for many years, you got to market the game at the base level. Well, we don't have enough money to do that. We can't do this. We can't do that. Well, that's never a word I have ever understood. You take some of that money and hire a marketing person for your region in basketball and the overall conference, and let them get who's the top scorer, blah, 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 blah. And they market high school sports. We're being marketed out of the world almost by college sports. We've got to do a better job at the individual level to market ourselves. Now that takes effort. We in the 15th region, and I was athletic director at Pikeville High School, we went to the local bank there, and they sponsored our district tournaments and our regional tournaments. And they also sponsored our Pike County Bowl 37 years ago. I worked with the bank there to sponsor it. Now, our regional tournament, because we had a sponsor, every team in the region gets an equal share, whether you're in the region or not. Everyone has been getting $5,000 and $6,000 and not even playing a game in the region. Oh, and they cried and they moaned and everything, but when they looked at the money, Paintsville, for example, looked at the money. This is the one I went to because Bill Mike Runyon was winning about 3 out of 6 regionals at that time, and showed him that the money, if you get $5,000 a year over 10 years, and you're in the region 6 times, which would be the most money you get? Well, I think we're in the region 6 times because there's only 8 people sharing it. 0 people those other 4 years, and that's what a lot of schools get, 0. And that's hard, and that's what I think a lot of these other plans are looking at, how you can generate more revenue. These six schools, if you got a corporate sponsor, the regional tournament would be for everybody, and everybody's involved in it. Thus, and so the regional tournaments for boys and girls be played in 1 week with 6 teams. You could play the girls regional and the boys regional in 1 week without having to skip over the weekend and play those games. They would be played in 1 week. Another positive. Fans like to be able to know when the tournaments are and how they're going to flow. A flow of a tournament, I can tell you this without question, the integrity of a tournament is how it flows and the rules and regulations of it and how it moves. Changing different things drastically and moving it all over the place is not good for tournaments. What's good for tournaments is a consistent flow of them being played 1 week, the next week, and then your people go to the state tournament. That gives you, the fans know what's going on. I'm a believer in two things in high school sports: fans and players. I'm not a big fan of coaches as far as making big decisions, because coaches are fundamentally about their own school and their own community. And I was a coach, and I know I did not see the bigger picture. This has to come from leadership. You are the leadership of the KHSAA. Do you have a vision or idea how this would work? And in your head, because if you go with it, you've all got to go with it. This is a state deal. It's not an experiment. You go with it statewide. And but it's not a great deal of difference. Districts have always been with it. They've always been here, people. Don't throw them away. That has value. And this district, where you win it and get a bye, and this district with 8 teams, and you have to fight to win it, the attendance and the excitement will come back to high school basketball at the fundamental dirt level. That's what made this organization, is the fundamental tournaments at the base level funded the KHSAA, created basketball interest that went to the state tournament, and those people were rabid. It just grows. This thing grows, then you go to state with the team. That's fundamentally how a tournament should work. And then the last one creates promotional marketing and opportunities that can help recapture the fan base. The fans will determine the history from here on out of high school basketball. Can we get them out? Can we get them interested? And can we make them a part of what's going on? And like I say, I'm a coach, but this decision, I think, has to come from you all. And I just want the opportunity to share it, because it's been in my head. Julian knows this, for about 10 years. I've had this in my head. And my dad is on the wall up here. He's on the first class of the KHSAA Hall of Fame. I grew up in high school basketball. I grew up in it, and then I played it, and then I recruited it, and then I coached it. And so I'm going from a lot of different angles, but when it came down to it, when I started thinking about it, it really came down to one angle: the district tournaments and those big districts. When every team brought their band, they brought their cheerleaders, they brought their majorettes, they brought their mayor, they brought the city council. It was a magnificent event every single year. Thank you for your time. I know I'm a little bit passionate here, but that's who I am. If I believe in something, I have to try to come to fruition as best I can. And that's why I'm here. I could let it go and say, okay, we'll let somebody else decide. But when a team from a district can win a district and lose the first game, I don't understand. When a team from a district, I just don't. The All-A system, I was involved in developing the All-A tournament. And the thing I loved about it was that, it's All-A teams, not everybody, so it was All-A teams. And I loved about the idea. But what happened to that idea was tarnished because of University Heights winning 7 or 8 of those. And they were not excellent. They were not fundamentally, they were a small school, but they weren't fundamentally a public school and had taxpayers. They should never have been allowed in that tournament. And they could have been denied because of the fact that it was an invitational. You all could not deny them. But and I spoke to the board on that, and I lost. And they beat us I had a Pikeville team there, and they beat us in the first 2 years they had it. And they beat Hyde off those, by the fact. They had 4 Division I players, and we had 1 who made all region. So anyway, appreciate your time. And Julian, appreciate you two giving me this opportunity. And I wore a coat and tie today because in our Glory Road games that we have for the Hall of Fame, we honor gymnasiums that have history and also not history just in basketball, but community history. Those gyms out there that are no longer in action, some of them are, were where you went to your dances and got your graduation. And so it's a cultural award for the communities and schools and those gymnasiums that they loved and cared about. And so in going out, meeting the people out there and listening to them, I think we're ready for a renaissance. I lived one renaissance. 1950 to up in the 90s was a renaissance in high school basketball. When you're getting 20,000 in Rupp Arena, and I mean, it was a renaissance. That renaissance has been damaged somewhat by the big umbrella of the college game and the pro game. They have billions of dollars. We're lucky if we got $100 in our account at the end of the year. Hopefully this will help you. But we got a market. Now, can we fight them at the high level? No. We have to fight them at the fundamental level. We got to play each other. We got to get our media involved, and we got to work at it. And when you get that, we'll begin going back towards 20,000 again. Anyway, appreciate it. I may have stepped on some toes. So be it. Not afraid of that. Never have been. But anyway, thank you for your time, and hope you all make a good decision with this. If not, I've lost a few.
Thanks.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Thanks
Thank
for
you
what
very
you do
much.
for all the kids.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well,
Really make a
I'm
big
saying,
difference for
we
us.
wore coat and tie today because in all our Glory Road games, we ask our coaches to wear coat and tie. And they say, why do you ask them to wear coat and tie? In honor and respect of the institution that came before you, that created this gymnasium. We're wearing coat and ties because of you. We're wearing coat and ties in respect for this organization and what it means to the state of Kentucky.
And
Thank you very much.
I rarely, now that I'm retired, I rarely ever wear a tie.
I had to make you do it.
Thank you.
No one else. You might ask if there's anybody else to make a public comment. I don't think there is because Alan's on the agenda.
Anybody else in the audience for public comment? Hear none, we will move on. We're gonna need to take a motion to adjourn adjourn the full board, go back to the work session, to have a motion. Jeremy, second, Gavin, all those in favor, right hand. Okay, we are now convening that full board and back to the work
So
session.
we'll give him a minute to go to the 9:15 agenda.
Right.
Yeah. Now, if you'd like, Alan to work him in early to baseball. Conversation, Alan staff. Yeah. Move in the agenda and go to baseball, alternative baseball. 3.11.
Where they are.
Yeah. He just wants to let him from half the race. No, you can do it from the chair. Yeah. Because it's public, it's a regular general meeting. He's the agenda. Yep.
All right, moving on into the work session, we will jump ahead on the agenda a little bit to 3.1.1. Invite Mr. Allenstein to come down for a presentation on the alternative baseball state site.
I did respect his leadership, but that was spitting it out like
I'm not going to have that much to say to run everybody off. I guess here's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think board members, basically, we've been, Alan and the Legends have served us for years as a host of our state tournament when it was 1 week, and then when it was 2 weeks, and then when it was all in 1 week. And then a couple of years ago when suddenly we didn't have a state facility, they kind of bailed us out. And we've been talking, I think he just wants to share with you the thought of of potentially either hosting the whole thing or regularly hosting certain pieces, but I don't speak for him. His GM, Justin Farrell, has been a great guy to work with since he came here. They have a huge activity. Is it 1 o'clock? Is that what you said?
What's that?
The kid activity day?
Today's Education Day.
Yeah.
So it's the last day of the year. We'll get about 4,000 or 5,000 kids come in, and
Yeah, so if we,
we teach them the basics of math and science and everything around a baseball game.
it's all, it's a good
Not really
angle.
very
Yeah,
much,
a lot of math, a lot of math. But anyway, that's the purpose. Mr. Kelly, if you want to make any comments or turn it over to him.
Just turn it over to you, Mr. Stein.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. I won't take up much of your time. I'll try to be respectful of your agenda. Julian's right. I just wanted the opportunity to visit with you real briefly again, to get you up to speed on what has happened at Legends Field over the last couple of years, to talk to you about our history, and with the idea that we would like to be considered again at whatever level you could do that, whether it be on a permanent basis or a rotating basis, but we'd like to participate again as hosts for the state baseball championship. From an historical perspective, I'll go back 30 years. When I was beginning the process of building the new stadium, getting a franchise for professional baseball in Lexington, one of the most important things that we had stated publicly was that it wasn't just about bringing professional baseball, but we wanted to have a venue in the central part of the state that would accommodate all levels of baseball, in the amateur to professional levels. And we made a commitment back in 1998 to our mayor and to our public that we would make sure that every single kid who wanted to play baseball in the city of Lexington and surrounding communities would have the opportunity to do that on a professional field at least one time in their 4-year career of playing baseball. And we made good on that promise. We had high school teams and games playing from the very beginning. Our DNA was not just about baseball, but it's about building baseball and making it important throughout the state. And I think we were very successful in being able to do that. From an historical perspective, back in the late 90s, when the state baseball championship was being held at Cliff Hagan Stadium, and it was 4 teams, and 2 teams and then 4 teams, and everybody had to come in and go out because there wasn't enough parking, and had to move things around. All of a sudden now we had a professional baseball stadium in Lexington where we had 6,000 seats. We had 26 private suites. We had 15 hospitality areas. We had parking for over 2,000 cars. It was convenient. It was central, but it was also dedicated to being the best facility that there could be. Without going through all the history, we had great success there, and our relationship grew from those 2 and then 4 teams to all the way to 16 teams. I was a preacher for a lot of years. Julian will tell you, going back all the way to Lewis, and I've been around a long time, and we preached the idea that baseball could be and should be just as important throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky for all the athletes who played it as was football or basketball. And we wanted to provide the kind of environment where the kids could get excited about that. And I will tell you that for many years, when we did get to finally having 16 teams over the course of 1 week, that we had people printing T-shirts. Many of you will remember that and know that there were T-shirts printed all over the state with kids playing the road to Applebee's Park, and they wanted to get to Applebee's Park and play at that professional stadium. Well, we sold the team after the 2012 season, and there was a new ownership group that came in, and the relationship and commitment to high school and local baseball sports was not as important as without getting into the politics of it. It didn't matter to them as much as it did to us. And I will say one thing on the side too, and I don't want to get into your business, and it's not that important, but I will say this. Back in the late 90s, and when we first started in 2000, I think our first year junior was 2002 or 3, whatever it was. Baseball was not a money-making sport, especially not holding the state baseball championship. And all of a sudden, we figured out a way together with the Board of Control and the Legends to figure out how you and we could make a little bit of money out of it. And as a matter of fact, we turned it into something that became a good revenue source. And we want to make sure that that always happened. And I have no idea what your situation is now, where you're playing in another place. But we believe that with the growth and the great success that the University of Kentucky is having in their new facility, they hope to get to the regional and the super regional every year and go on to the College World Series. I will tell you, I also owned a AAA team in Omaha, Nebraska, and we played at Rosenblatt Stadium. And then we built a new stadium down there, and I made a commitment to those folks in Omaha when we built that new stadium that I would never come back and watch a College World Series game until my alma mater played. And by God, last year I was there. And it's a great thing. And so I know that the University of Kentucky intends on trying to get there every single year, but that might mess with your calendar. And I understand that. We don't know from one year to the next if that facility is going to be available. We can make our facility available every single year. We can accommodate whatever you want to do in terms of how you want to break it up. We can do a whole week. We can do it over 2 weekends. We can, however it would make sense for baseball to be successful. We're willing to accommodate if we know in advance that we've got a commitment. We can go to our leagues, whether we're in the independent and Atlantic League where we are right now, or whether we get back in the next year or two into affiliated baseball. We can go to our leagues and say we need to guarantee that these dates are available every single year moving forward. I can't do that 100% for next year because we don't know if you're able to bring the tournament or not, but we do have an entire week, and we can even accommodate if you need to do the championship, if your case not available again, if the accommodation would have to be for that one first year that we'd play the games on the following weekend earlier in the day, probably a 1 o'clock championship or whatever we'd have to do. The point of fact is this: we very much believe that we serve best the students, the athletes, the coaches, and more important, the mommies and daddies and grandmas all over the state if we have a permanent home in a professional facility that wants to be your partner. And we can accommodate that whatever way we can. I'll let you ask whatever questions you want. I don't need to make a big speech about this other than I'll say this. Our field is where we have kids and guys like Roger Clemens and Jose Altuve, JD Martinez, even Josh Anderson from Eubank, Kentucky, on their way to the big leagues. We got these guys that have played on our facility, in our facility, and they get there. But much more importantly to the Legends, and I will say on a personal basis, to me, is the kid from Pikeville or Hopkinsville or wherever they come from, where their grandma who comes crying with tears in a t-shirt that says, "I'm at Applebee's Park," or whatever we happen to be called at the time. I made it there And it was important, the most important thing that ever happened to our kids' life, just like the kids do who make it to Rupp Arena playing basketball. This is their goal. They get to play on this professional field where Roger Clemens pitched or Jose Altuve hit 360. We can make that accommodation for them. And I believe that we can once again create, you just heard a whole presentation about marketing and being engaged in the community and getting folks involved to make what we do for these kids important. You got to partner with us, and we would be committed to doing that. The one thing that I'd like to do, and I'll close with this, is we started this back in 2002, and it stayed there until 2012 when I retired and we sold the club. As an aside, we bought the club back last year. We spent $5 million upgrading the facility. It's back to as beautiful and as functional as facilities it's ever been. We had what we called the state championship garden. We installed a brick every year with the MVP and the team that won the championship. We installed a flagpole and we flew the KHSAA and the state champions flag for a whole year. I want to get back to that. They stopped it in 2012. I think I can probably go back and figure out who won those things in 13, 14, 15 and on. We can add those bricks in and we can make that the focal point of the event again. Just give us the opportunity, and if you can make it as so that we know in advance, we can go to our leagues and make sure that those time frames are available. I'll answer, Julian, whatever questions you might have.
You covered, as I know you would, most of the questions we might have. Was the passions obviously there? They were that way when they were the host. In the community, we know what they want. We know that the facility has certainly improved in the last few years. If you haven't had a chance and we get done today, different, I think, Mr. Baseball.
What's the field type there? I haven't been there in a while. Is it field turf or use regular grass?
We've got our artificial surface now. We installed that 2.5, 3 years ago now. We actually are playing year round. We host. We're the home of Transylvania University. We're gonna be. You're probably aware, hosting Henry Clay for 3 years because they're. It's another hat that I wear, but we're building a new school over there. So our surface is available all the time now.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
We'll get done. Some of them may see you this afternoon. You never know.
Do what?
Some of them may drift down there this
Tomorrow we
afternoon.
start in 45 minutes. And better hurry because tomorrow night's the last game of the year.
Yeah,
So,
true.
We're done. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right, and the recommended motion there is to accept the presentation and direct any necessary action discussion. Moving back to the top of the agenda, item 2.1.1, non-championship reports from the staff.
Mr. Kelly, I think Mr. Cope would probably want to share with Ms. Hacker that report from TPG.
Good morning. We're doing championship reports.
Non-championship.
Hope everybody's doing well. Sorry, I missed some of the new folks in July, but just to give you a quick overview. So we are moving into our 5th year of the partnership with TPG and the KHSAA. Past 4 years have been amazing. We've hit goal all 4 years, and we are aiming to hit goal for a 5th year in a row. It'll be the first time in TPG history that that's happened. So it's something that our team is very proud of. Currently, right now, our focus is finishing up our renewals. You guys have a report right there in front of you, but we are currently sitting at 60% to goal. And it's just, I like to say this every year, when you hit goal, your goal goes up the next year, right? So we made a significant jump this year. The increase is approximately 20%. every year to year on our sales goal. So 60% we feel good with verbals. That means that folks have given us yeses. We're just waiting on contract stuff and signatures. With that, we're sitting at 73%. For the folks that have been in the room before, you've heard me say this, our pitch ratio is very important in this game. That's what I like to say, Coach, is that this is a game that I do. Every meeting is a different game, but our pitch ratio is very, it's actually leading the company. So we are 8-to-1 pitch ratio. So that means when you look at the gap to goal, it's times 8, right? So that means we're pitching a lot of dollars. We're talking to a lot of people. We're talking championship stuff. We're talking regular season stuff. We're talking social media content. I mean, our inventory has been able to really take off in the last 4 years. I say this time after time. I can't do that without the team and the commissioner staff. We all work hand in hand together because we have to fulfill all these deals. We can't just get it signed and then it just magically happens, right? So having a high pitch ratio, that just gives us a little more confidence to make sure that we hit this goal before New Year's. Update on sponsors. Our basketball titles are staying the same, so that's good. Obviously, football is UK Healthcare, sports medicine. We do have some open entitlements for the spring. We just did a little transition, a little movement with Clark's Pump and Shops deal. So we do have our spring swing, I like to say. Those are all open, but we're talking to people, right? New thing this year, well, it's always, I guess, the same partner has been track, baseball, and softball. But now that this is open an opportunity, we're making sure that whoever does baseball and softball, that it's the same person, right? So it makes sense for them to be together if we're playing next door to each other. But it still makes sense. Just the sport itself. We have a lot of people that we're prospecting about that conversation. Again, we also have openings with government things, and you guys know this, we had a government partner that had a grant, and they were the title of bass fishing and esports, and unfortunately, they weren't able to get their dollars back, and they were really upset about it. You know, they loved the partnership, they loved the activation and everything that went into it. They just didn't have the grant funding. So they should find out in December, but it might not be I should say it's definitely not going to be at the entitlement level for those sports. But again, it's always good in this game to be able to have these opportunities when they come up. So that means that we can increase what the worth is, right? And we can ask for more. We can include more in those packages. Another important thing for all of us in the room is that this is the 5th year on the UK healthcare deal. So whenever you see a UK healthcare person or you go to a UK healthcare visit, please, please tell them how much you love the partnership and what they're doing. We will start that negotiation in the next couple of months for the next 5 years. And that is no easy lift. That is our largest deal. That's our most complex deal. It's a very, very detailed with a lot of different avenues, I guess you could say, as a part of it. And so they'll be there tomorrow. There'll be several representatives from UK Healthcare, different service lines that will be part of our sponsor on-site activation at the annual meeting. I really think is that my timer? So yeah, I mean, anytime too, though, I think
Well played. Well played.
anytime, just know that I love referrals, right? I'm working yesterday I was at a networking event, and I was able to get a lot of names out of that, right? And those names, high percentage, turn out to be meetings, okay? And if I can get in front of somebody, they don't set a timer on me, but they do, I get them hearing those gentlemen talk, that's kind of the story. I shouldn't say kind of. Those are stories that we share with community leaders and business owners all the time. We make sure that they understand that this is not just a sponsorship, okay? this is really changing the lives of young adults, communities across our state. So we explained to them that yes, this is a championship in a sport, but this is really the Super Bowl, right? Like your ladies get to go to Rupp Arena and make it to that final game, right? And we're going to see a different ending this year, but that's an inside joke between them. But you know what I'm saying? That's their Super Bowl, and so our team, we love to incorporate brands with that, right? So they experience that, from everything from inside the locker room and getting those gifts and those takeaways. So it's a memorable experience for them, just like an NCAA tournament, because a high percentage of these people, this is the highest level they'll play at. So back to what I was saying about referrals. If you guys know business owners and you have maybe deals in your local school or community, right? I would love an introduction to those folks. We do all size packages. They're not all six figures, but it's fine. We want to get somebody on the map, and then hopefully they'll stay with us for the long run, and we'll be able to show them a real ROI and make a difference. We are exploring different category exclusivities this year too. So we're aggressively pushing the financial category. That means banks, credit unions, things like that. And then we're also going really hard with other Kentucky government offices. So any questions for me? Yeah. Anything else?
Ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much.
Item 2.1.2, sports reports from staff.
Anyone have anything they need to highlight? It's periodic. We're in the middle of the season. First, continuing to lead this call.
Reaction, Mr. Collins on that.
Yep.
Item 2.1.3, Arbiter Sports update.
Do a little bit of dual. Rob, you want to tell them any feedback you're getting or anything that they might look forward to?
Well, yeah, we get all kinds of feedback, of course, but we did have 3, I thought, successful in-person events. I think we had close to 200 between all 3 of them, I would think. So I thought that went over well. I think we need to continue doing that, and maybe I need to continue doing that on my own more, doing more, in-person trainings and so forth like that. So they're committed now to roll out the stats package. They've got a developer now that's real hungry to get stats in the system, so we don't have to rely on other platforms for that. So they're hoping, I don't think Julie knows this, but they're hoping by maybe in the winter sports to maybe get some basketball teams to pilot that, some basketball stats and so forth. So I think that's exciting. We got to continue to make progress on the coaching eligibility piece. That's the biggest thing we heard during the regional meetings for sure. And Chase is working on that. I know some of y'all probably saw him. They have committed to get that into better shape. And I think we all agree that it needs to be in better shape. So, and then other than that, we got the online transfer project going on. It's funny, I just got an email from an assigner today saying that, their view is different than what the school's view is on the schedule. And that's the big thing they're working on now too, is developing the tournament manager out. So where it bridges the gap between what the administrators see and what the schools see, kind of get them more on the same page. I think that's good. They've already met with some of the guinea pigs, I think, some from JCPF, I believe. So the people that have run tournaments, a big tournament like LIT and so forth. So I think that's exciting. We just got to keep plugging away at it and making it better.
I think the only thing I'll add is he mentioned a little bit about the transfer thing. We know that rolling out something new in the fall for ADs is probably not real good, not good timing. So we're really looking at that winter break as a time to really get some more active testing on some of the online transfers. And right now, I don't think our staff processing them could switch methods in the middle of a season, because it is the volume is just simply too high. But they have their developer on that piece has made a lot of progress. In case you hear, one of the and Rob mentioned this just a little bit, but one of the real, I don't think they realized how complicated the scheduling system was when it comes to our 2 groups that run the All A and 2A tournaments. That basically they're running a tournament round, but it's at several places with potentially several different assigners And it is just, it's a level of branching that they just haven't experienced. So that's one of the things you'll hear. Our staff, there's our staff, the leads on the sports are supposed to be and better be monitoring a report that we have on the public website. If you have duplicate games, if you have games with officials. I talked to an assigner this morning who's got a game not this Friday but next Friday that normally he would service, but the school when they entered the schedule had clicked that they didn't need officials. And so he hadn't seen it yet. So they're fixing that. I think that the biggest pushback that I would say, and we have a lot of respect for our assigners, but this is a membership driven association, not an assigner driven association. So we've got to continue giving the tools to our members to properly manage, and the assigners take the data from that and execute it. So, I'm not interested personally in the views being the same, and I know Rob gets that feedback. They've shared it with us too, but they being able to see what the school has messed up might be good. Being able to change that is a different story. And so we want the schools in control. This next generation of ADs really likes the stuff. The transition for veterans continues to be a little challenging.
I continue to learn stuff too. It's like I was talking to a signer out west this morning and emailing him, talking with him. And I never even thought that, once the school loads in the schedule, they could just go in and export it into the assignment. I was like, I don't know why I didn't even suggest that fast. It's, hey, here's a signer, this is what we have loaded in.
I think the biggest thing
on the reports page.
You will get copied on this because it's been supposed to go out for about a week now. But there's going to be communication to the assigners and to all the fall managers about the process for doing this fall, so that we don't get into one of them doing it one way and one of them doing it another. And some of our assigners that are in high demand sports, soccer is an example, that when you try to play a weekend game on soccer, you're competing with the small colleges, the big colleges, you're competing with everybody. And so the quicker they know stuff, the better. And so we are learning more about the integrated system, but it's so much better than it was before. It's not perfect. And we keep reminding everybody it took us almost 20 years to get the old system the way we really wanted it. So it's not going to happen in a year and a half. But thanks to everybody who's been giving feedback on it.
One thing I'd close with, if you want to kind of see the direction it's going, I think a really great example is the Washington State Athletic Association. What is their initials?
WIAA.
WIAA. If you want to look at their site, they've got it all one cohesive site with RPIs, rankings and so forth, and standings and so forth. I think they can give you an idea of where it's going.
See, where we probably will end up, we'll still have a flat file site with a lot of documents on it. But as far as all the interactivity around schedules and scores and brackets and stuff needs to be in one place. And we know that. We need to try to figure out what our next steps are. External development, what do we need to do? Because one of the things we're finding out is that by being able to harvest some of the data from Arbiter, if you've not looked under the media tab at that missing scores link, I mean, if I'm an AD, I'm checking that every day to make sure I'm not on it. We've got a school that was concerned that they're concerned about other people entering their games. And we told them, if you Rob told them, if you go to the left and just ask for your home schedule, you can catch your red flags, find out, make sure you've got your officials assigned, et cetera. Worst thing in the world, we fear 360, because I was in charge of football the year we had a crew not show up at Tate Creek. I mean, I can still remember the assigner. We had some assigner miscommunication. And they're calling me at 6 o'clock, and we're rounding up a crew of retired guys, and ended up covering the game by about 8:30. They ended up getting a crew together. Thankfully, it was in a metropolitan area. But that's the biggest fear, is that somehow Brandy's got a sold out audience there at Rowan County, and there's no guys showing up in stripes, whether they like them or not. There's still nobody there. So we're trying to give them the tools. We're trying to educate it. Rob does a really good job with his one-on-one sessions. We're still we're mid-September, we're still turning over ADs.
A lot of new ADs.
We've had ADs leave mid-semester. We've had ADs, veterans that have Christmas. I mean, it's not because of Arbiter. There's a lot of other reasons. But we're going to keep turning over ADs. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Item 2.1.4, officials licensing updates.
Mr. Cope, you want any highlight of the numbers there?
I think just football, despite being over 100% compared to previous years, you got to keep in mind it's also quality that's available. and there are still challenges in the far west part of the state
Yeah.
with regard to scheduling and official availability.
Yeah, because I'm sure, as Mr. Rhodes knows, those bottom four regions are trading from each other every day because they don't have enough Thursday games. Yeah, and moving. We've had at least 3 or 4 times that we've used the wheel spinner to tell who's moving, and just said, okay, we're putting all the games that are on this night, and if it lands on you, you're moving your game because nobody wants to play another game, but you kind of have to. And then we're in a really odd situation this year. As Butch said, the numbers are good, but we've lost a lot of experience. So we've got a lot of brand new ones from the last 2 or 3 years out there in some tough situations. But we've also got the week of October 5th, 6th, 7th, that week. Our fall breaks, according to KDE's list, are spread over about 3 weeks, but the lion's share of them is that week. So people don't want to play 2 games on the Friday night it starts and the Friday night in the middle of it. So they've all packed the other days. And so some of you that have had plenty of officials, you're probably going to have your signer call and say, oh, by the way, we got a problem. So that's one of the reasons we're checking. But he's right. Don't let the numbers give you a false sense of security. Soccer had a big run for a couple of years, and now what we're seeing in soccer is the focus needs to be on retention. The recruiting numbers were good. We're not retaining, and we'll do the same thing in football. It's how to grow. So we just want you to look at those. We'll give them to each meeting.
Item 2.1.5, disqualification report and comparison.
I think we're still seeing a high number of pitch clearing situations in football on a weekly basis and dealing with that. Controlling the sideline, and Commissioner Share at the regional meetings to remind coaches, unfortunately, you need to practice when a situation like that happens, because others are coming on and being involved in it. And then at this rate, soccer's going to surpass last year's.
We know we're in record territory now. They keep going. But to the football brawl thing in Russ's area last weekend, we've got 2 schools that have an issue, and they end up, they're probably going to have 4 or 5 suspended, and they only had 21 to begin with. We've really got to make sure about you got to behave.
And just forfeiting that game because they don't have enough for next week doesn't suffice the penalty. You still got to
What you end up is you penalize the other team whose people stayed on the sideline because they lose a game. So it's not something, as Darren likes to say, not trying to be punitive, but it comes down to you've got to try a delicate balance here. So
I will point out the DQ average per game is still in football state.
You're not that good at math.
I am 21 regular season games for soccer, 10 for football. We've got boys and girls. Math works out in my favor.
It's a regular.
Item 2.1.6, transfer and appeals eligibility report.
This math does not work out in my favor.
No. There are 2 attachments, and one, of course, the names of the kids one is never going to be public because of their public open records laws. But obviously you can see from both reports, numbers are big. When you look at the one report that Chad and I started working on a couple of weeks ago, and look at year over year what appeals look like. So right now, if you look at that one page and you see that we had 12 appeals from last spring. If you, not the individual page, the other one, if you don't care, the one be sure you're on the. Yeah, it's labeled. Well, they're similar label, but appeals agenda hearing dates. It doesn't have the date on it. So that's some totals for you. Because obviously, as we look at any changes in whether it be rules or system, and I'm not saying you want to pass a rule because you need less cases. I'm just saying we have to be aware that the case numbers are not going down. So right now we've had 45 already, and that does not include the way the software picks it up. Until we set a date for an appeal, it doesn't pick up that number. There's 20. What'd you say? 21. 50. Yeah, there's 21 that you can add on to that have already appealed. They don't have a date set. We're having to really do some advanced scheduling with our hearing officers or hearing officer and trying to work in. There seems like they're having an appeal every other day. And these are not cases that were coming out of it feeling like, well, they shouldn't have even had to appeal. These are legitimate appeals. These are people that are not meeting an exception and yet want to be eligible. And so
26.
So you can add 26 to that number right now. And that number last fall for the entirety of the time would have been 41, and we're at 71, and we still got a month to the threshold date. So it is every day, all the time. The movement of students is not going to change regardless of the rule. It's not changing because they're willing to go through it. But we want you seeing that data. We will keep up with that. If you don't mind, we'll keep getting that.
And 2.1.7 interim transfer study reports.
I don't know, Darren or Chad, if you have anything to add, but I wanted to add a couple of things because this discussion came up in the summer at the roundtable. And remember, the rule contains the specifics, the regulatory reasons around you're ineligible and here's your exceptions. The processes by which they are the way they're processed are in total control of our office. So we're looking, the DPP regulation is in here because we're trying to look at it. Had a long talk with a staff member at KDE just about, and interestingly, her comment about even using some of the DPP standards is almost like that just became yesterday's rules because of 563. They're really some of the old standards that we could really lean on for had somebody moved or not are kind of gone away by the blurred lines under 563. So we're trying to adapt as well. The other three attachments you have there were made public during the region meetings, and we pointed them out. And we had quite a bit of schools heckling each other about their number of transfers. One of the people who came out it was funny after the July meeting came out, no way we're going to approve that change. Turned out it was the number one person for having transfers into his school declared eligible. So he caught a lot of grief from his buddies in Louisville. And so it's really nothing we're going to do. If anybody thinks there's motivation about we're going to have less transfers, it's not going to happen. That's not happening anywhere in the country. We're not, with due respect to Coach Trivett, we're not going back to 1990. Not right now. And choice is there. But this is from that preliminary data. We have kind of gotten a plan together for when all the data is together. We do want to make it searchable, want to make it interactivity a little bit. Right now, we're still in the raw data analysis mode. We're still trying to get things done. We can tell you pretty close how many cases have been ruled eligible because of each exception, and we can get really close on the due process ones on what the due process was. We have had, for example, we've had between 80 and 100 cases in that 3-year period that have been resolved in favor of the student with documented mental health issues. We're talking about inches of documents. We've had the same thing for academic. We're starting to get more academic issues now. And, we'll cover one of the schools that seems to be the case du jour. What I think was interesting to us is to find out how many schools hadn't had any transfers. It's bigger than a handful. And yet the preponderance is in a group of about 50. The big numbers are in about 50 schools. And so that's just remember we mentioned this, but now that everybody's had a month to look at it, this is from the system, the old school system that we had, that sole purpose was to draft the letter of ruling, not to do any analysis. Now the staff's got to get back on the analysis piece. We've got some missing pieces we've got to fill in and really draw more conclusions. And we got to have that done by the 1st of December so we can take care of legislative inquiries. It's ongoing.
Yeah, I think, we're going to start filling in gaps and digging in a little bit, and we've got a plan in place along with the commissioner on that. The academic one, we're going to take those ones where we see the commonalities, and I think we'll have to sit down, we'll have to have a discussion, and a think tank, if you will, is is there a need for an exception to be added based on this criteria? We talked about the academic. We have a staff member here that talks about their tradition. My tradition of 16 years, we've never had an academic exception. Commissioner Tackett pointed out to me that there was a time that we did, and there was a a lot of stress and difficulty in managing that. That's what my dilemma is. Certainly, when we have the hearings, I try to focus in on the things that I think are most relevant for consideration. The biggest thing is, when a student decides to enroll in the 9th grade, what are the facts and circumstances at that day? And then they've gone 1, 2 years, whatever the case may be, and they've decided to change enrollment as an order because of an academic reason. What's changed at their school? What's changed at the new school? What's driving that, so that we could come up with some kind of criteria that would be manageable. I think simply allowing 2 schools to post down their academic catalogs and saying, I wanted this and they don't have it, seems difficult to manage that, because any 2 schools you can do that. But perhaps there's some more real fundamental things that we can focus in on that would reveal differences that would be favorable for the student and not disfavoring.
And I think our discussions, even with the folks in curriculum at KDE, have been about that the getting an apples to apples comparison is nearly impossible. Even if you certainly to the catalog level, we did. Those people whose hair resembles mine or Matt's or Randy's can probably remember that when there was a point in time that if you were in the lowest performing on the statewide test, you had an opportunity to change schools. And then I can remember Kevin Nolan calling me and telling me, by the way, we just changed the test and everybody will be in that next year. So you probably want to change that rule. And we took it to the annual meeting and pulled it out and never brought it back. We've had a famous case involving the school in your area. It was actually one of our court precedent setting cases where the one school happened to have a horticulture class. It was the only one of the 3 schools in the Bell County area. And so suddenly all the kids wanted to be a horticulturalist. So we really have been kind of hesitant about that. They're not, first blush, they're not sure that wouldn't be the most easily manipulated exception you ever had. Was looking at any kind of academic comparison, and we've shied away as staff. You can propose anything you want to. We've shied away from anything that forced the athletic association to make an academic judgment on a school. It just doesn't seem like we're in that lane. But there may be a way.
I know the perfect example, and I know Mr. Zuber sat through a very long hearing not long ago, but that pales in comparison to the academic hearing that I sat through about 10 years ago. And it was 9 hours, and what happened was the student was pointing to the No Child Left Behind report, and their school was down in this tier, and the school that they wanted to go to or that they transferred to was in this tier. This is a basketball field. This happened like at the beginning of October. Remember, that data comes out late September, early October. And guess what had happened by the time they show up? Schools had exactly changed places in the report. And, after they had board attorneys there for both schools, they had the student had an attorney there. And at the end of that 9 hours, I just simply said, I think this is why we don't have an academic exception. That just shows how difficult it is.
The feedback to the proposal has been that really it doesn't target. They don't think it's going to be very helpful. They don't necessarily think it's going to hurt. But the biggest feedback we keep getting is to come up with an idea about mid-season transfers. Blocking that kid who gets mad, school discipline, gets booted out of a school, quits a team, and ends up across town or across district playing. That's the one we keep hearing.
You're talking about from a legislative perspective. That's their.
No, this is the membership, just in going around the region meetings.
You're talking like letting the data drive the exceptions or letting the data drive the proposals. And this is data, right? But it's not, I don't know. Remind me again, what was the rush to put a proposal out without knowing the data and being able to directly solve a problem? Because we don't know what problem we're solving.
Yeah, we are.
Perception.
I'll be glad to answer that. We're forcing schools to lie about whether a kid played. Yeah. We're forcing schools to erroneously fill out forms because there was no de minimis participation requirement. And that's all it was designed at, nothing else.
Tomorrow's proposal.
Correct. Nothing else. The rest of it has to come from further data.
Okay.
And I think there also, we do have legislative pressure. We had the proposal last year that, they wanted to give everybody a free free transfer, because that was what at least the mantra was in some other states. Although I can remind the board that if you look at those proposals in the other states, that's not exactly what they are. They're everyone's a little different.
Yeah.
But that was also a topic as well. There's no doubt that I think we have a lot of anecdotal information, a lot of anecdotal evidence that does drive some good conversation. The membership certainly resonates with that. But I do think that this process, this project, will give us some data-driven points that we can say, is this a problem? Is there a solution? Sometimes it'll require more digging in, but I do think this project will be helpful because we can be a little data-driven on targeting certain things. I think that was helpful.
Did we, are the proposals tomorrow about in-season transfer? Yeah.
It's only about if I only played a certain amount. It defines a minimum standard.
But the in-season transfers you're saying is the hot button.
Oh yeah, that's the feedback has been, that's really that de minimis thing's great, gotta address that, but here's the problem. That's the ones that seem to get the notoriety among the schools, is the one that the difference maker that transfers, like, if a kid happens to transfer from a school right now that plays football and suddenly gets eligible right before the district game starts.
Yeah.
That's the ones that are just such a red flag.
That's a concern.
Because the transfer rule, in all honesty, playing devil's advocate here, the transfer rule itself has always disfavored certain sports and certain kids. It was really probably written for basketball players to try to transfer. I don't think anybody really envisioned a transfer rule applying to a tennis player 50 years ago when they started. So it's always been a little off. But this is just one first step. This is not a solution to this at all.
Well, and I think that the good thing is, as well, is that as we have gone forward, we're designing things so that this is not going to just be a one-time capture of data.
Right.
This will start being something that on an annual basis we can monitor, look at. So I think it's going to be a tool that the staff and the board and the state as a whole can use as we continue to have the discussions, because no matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what happens in the next year, that's going to be a topic of discussion that's always going to be present.
Well, and there's at least 4 more states that are looking right now at changes to one time because everybody around them doing. And we have been very vocal. Our state does not want that. We don't care. It does not appear as though our membership has any interest. We've said that to the legislature. We've said it publicly in just a free shot. So what's
At any point, you're talking about at any point.
just a free shot of going. So that at least that's been the membership feedback.
And I think it's really important that we continue to have this discussion publicly, because we see other states, perfect examples to the direct south of us. When they're not engaged in the conversation, then other people start having that conversation, or the legislatures come in and start trying to dictate those rules. Right now, we have a relationship that I believe the legislature really believes that we are trying to manage this, that we are having discussions, and that's what we want. But if that were to change down the road, it makes me nervous.
And it's interesting because you talk about our neighbors to the south. One of the rationales for theirs was that basically we're going to let everybody go unless you can prove there was an advantage. So really, it's almost like trying to shoot with a rifle. I don't think anybody's got any long-term optimism that what they've got's going to work out. It's
especially when given what we see with that subject.
Yeah.
In our environment, it's very difficult.
We're not where we want to be, but hopefully we're making a step or two forward. The most important thing, I said this at the regional meetings, those of you that were there, I appreciate you coming. The most important thing is that our membership up here actively involved in trying to look at the rule, because the bulk of the folks in the legislature want the association to make the rules. They want the association to be in charge of its own people. They're not looking to, we're very blessed right now. They're not looking to take over and tell us how to do it. But they're also not looking for us to stand pat and just say that it's perfect the way it is. So as long as we keep looking, I think we're in good shape to prevent somebody writing something that we can't live with. We'll see.
Anything else? All right, item 2.1.8, regional meeting reports.
staff, you have anything to add? We had almost 472 people that got credit for being there. So we had really good attendance all through the state. So it's good. And as Rob said, the three sessions that we held that also had Arbiter there had really good attendance.
And item 2.1.9 is the recommended motion is to accept the operation reports as submitted and direct any necessary action. Moving on, item 2.2.1, status of regulation.
I am happy to report that last week, we went through the administrative review, regulation review subcommittee, at LRC and had no, issues, no hitches. I did get nervous when they took all of KDE's regulations that were being done and they put them all together and we all went up there together. That's not something that they've done. And then all of a sudden we had the legislator get up and have a sidebar with the chair, which was very right for a few seconds. But they had some very good questions and they were very satisfied with the answer. So that has been reviewed. It will now be their standard practice to refer that to the education subcommittee. I talked to staff yesterday. That has not happened yet. They anticipate that it will happen in the next week. The next meeting of the education interim committee is October 14th. Our hope is that it will be on the agenda that October 14th is Representative Tipton that'll be chairing that one, and we have a good relationship. I know that he'll put that on there for us if we want to. And that means at the end of that meeting, when they adjourn, the regulation process is complete and it's effective, which is good because we're already started for next year.
Just to put a summary to it, we started the most substantive changes, started discussion at a meeting David was at, and several of us called Team Up for Sports Safety in June of 24. And we're just now getting the legislative action finished. So people that think you can wave a magic wand and fix this stuff, anything, it takes a long time. And the process has been deliberately slowed down by the legislature who didn't like some of the actions taken almost autocratically during the pandemic. So they're making the process be very methodical.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And I talked to our friends at KD yesterday. Remember, there's actually a lawsuit pending from the governor against the legislature because they changed the process that administrative regulations are reviewed. It used to require, or it does require, that the governor certify to the regulations, but the governor's refused to do that thus far under the new law. But we have moved through, and everybody at KD feels like everything will be fine, and that lawsuit will be resolved one way or another, but should not impact us at the end. But it's just, there are other forces at play here that are kind of slowing down our process, and hopefully that will be the case next year.
2.2.2, status of legislative discussions.
Nothing. We've had multiple meetings, probably with about 40 of the members of the Senator House in the last 3 weeks, and they're all happy that we're staying as below the radar as we can, and they're very happy that our schools are at least looking at the transfer. And the board is happy. They're happy you all are too.
Item 2.2.3, status of Title IX revisits and meetings.
Gary Lawson, our lead auditor, and myself, we had an initial meeting on August 25th with all the schools that are being revisited, just to kind of give them a summary of what happens in those revisits. The last week on Thursday and Friday, Commissioner Tackett, Mr. Catcher, and myself, and those auditors had 2 separate Title IX workshops where we talked more in depth with anybody that wanted to join about, not just the revisits, but what our philosophy is in regards to Title IX and what our expectation is of our member schools from one year to the next and how they best facilitate and execute that within their buildings. Starting a week from tomorrow on September 25th, our auditors will be going out for their first of the 45 in-person site visits for the schools that are scheduled to be audited this year. So we're grateful for those folks who continue to do that. We're certainly grateful for our member schools as we continue to be what we feel like at the forefront of Title IX education and making sure that we're continuing to support gender equity in our sports program.
Yeah.
All right, item 2.2.4, prime date report and an update on membership follow-up.
The report, there were four schools in July that didn't meet the scheduling requirement. We reached out to them to get any responses. If there were any extenuating circumstances, and you've shared with the responses there. I think with regard to Frankfurt Christian, it was a little bit of a learning curve for them because they were under an assumption that if a senior was on the team, it had to be a varsity contest. And we do not define the levels and the grades that are in on that. So I think that would be a little assistance with them. Ludlow, we met at the regional meeting with them after going back over with their schedule. It was deemed that they were in compliant, and we notified them. And the McCree Central had shared that they had a couple of weather issues with regard to their compliance. And then St. Henry was compliant, but added a game, and that was the reason that they were out of compliance. So only three eventually, after reviewing the schools, were deemed non-compliant.
2.2.5, the recommended motion is to accept the regulatory reports as submitted and direct any necessary action. Item 2.3.1, the annual meeting of the membership tomorrow.
I think we've discussed the bylaw 6 proposal, and you all were very helpful at the special meeting. And I think kind of lost in the shuffle is our issue around F1 exchange students. We have some housekeeping in the proposal for tomorrow that you all approved a way back. But as we dig deeper in what's going on in exchange, that's going to be a continued topic, because we have a situation where basically 242 of our schools are held to one standard and 40 some are held to the other standard. That definitely advantages the 40 something. So we're probably going to need to dig in, but that was more in depth, did not meet them. We now have some data we didn't have May 1st to give you a proposal. So just consider that will stay on the agenda for some clarification and a future proposal.
What's the timeline for newbies for tomorrow?
Do what?
What's the timeline for us newbies for tomorrow?
Oh, the annual meeting, 8:30.
Break
We
it.
start
We get it
registration. Break has to begin at 9. The meeting itself where they vote is noon.
Item 2.3.2, the HYPE Student Leadership Conference.
We've got those on September the 29th and 30th. We still have a few slots open. And that is one of the fall break weeks. So I think that's a little bit of fallout from that. But we have our student group coming in that Sunday. And so if you've got anybody that's still interested, we do have slots on both days still open.
I think it's fair, without naming the school, to indicate what you're having with your national group too.
Yeah, we interview those individuals and give them the dates in advance and the expectations. And really, the big thing is they got to commit to the dates in July and they got to commit to the dates in September. We've had into situations where now that the school year gets in, they're involved in other activities and they decide, well, now we're not going to come do the HYPE conference in September. And we kind of reminded them that, there's expenditures involved, funds involved, investment involved, and that's part of a team. And now they're letting down their team that's going to have to fill in their slots for them too as well. And they knocked out other kids that we were under consideration too.
Do you notify their school?
Yes, their AD was notified and the parent was copied too as well in response. And they were removed from further activities with them. We're just like, if you can't be there then, we don't need you the rest of the year.
But they went to the summer.
They went to the summer.
We paid for their vacation.
Item 2.3.3, the Advanced Administrators Workshop.
We're trying to finalize a date in mid-October. We had originally the date that the Hilton had, and quite a few had. We were looking at a date this week. There's a group from north of here that really was hopeful of a week in October or a day in October because of other activities that might be going on in town. But until we get done with these fall break weeks, we probably won't set a date. It'll be more like it was 2 years ago, that last part of October.
Item 2.3.4, Hall of Fame screening.
Just information for you, first-year members and third-year members. You're on the screening committee for the Hall of Fame. There's a list of in there of those that have not been screened as yet, as well as those that have been. There is still time to get a nomination in. That's one of the things that once Brian figures out where the coffee pot is and which hallway to go down, he'll be trying to push for more nominations. We are woefully short on underrepresented populations, previously underrepresented populations, but there's a list of who's been nominated. November 1st is the deadline. If you know of anybody that needs to be nominated. We did, for Mr. Roach, we did finally get a nomination on a certain female golfer, but we're probably going to look back for more detail. So Brian will probably be reaching out to you, but she should have plenty available.
Item 2.3.5, the recommended motion is to accept the reports of membership meetings as submitted and direct any necessary action. Item 2.4.1, update on member schools, new schools, mergers, and splits.
Well, I've heard from 2 or 3 of you, and I know Darren probably has as well. The merger involving Christian County and Hopkinsville is certainly heating up. This is their last year as 2 separate schools, and there seems to be a lot of movement around in between and into and sometimes out of that particular consolidated school. We're just reminding you that if you get questions, let us know. We'll be glad to try to get you the right answer, but they are still separate schools until they're not separate schools. So they don't get any privilege for being a consolidated school. We are looking forward to them proposing an academic waiver because they have indicated that is something they would champion. So we're going to see if they bring something forward. I don't know if there's any update at all. There's no update that I know of on the Carter situation. None of the new ones have you mentioned candidacy people?
I've started scheduling meetings with the new ones for just starting bylaw review this fall.
And 2.4.2, news from around the state and nation.
Just as attached, there's some information we shared the basics of it with you, but there's some things that are going around the country we'd like to keep you informed of.
2.4.3, the recommended motion is to accept the general reports as submitted and direct necessary action. 2.5.1, discussion of wrestling regional alignment criteria and alternatives.
This is just in report form. We went over this. We provided all this data to you at the summer meeting, but I know we were kind of preoccupied with other issues. We're going to continue to look at options on the wrestling alignment and see if there's any way to balance with the given size of tournaments. There was a couple of suggestions made that actually create a worse balance situation. So it's probably not going to lead to what we want to. But if you can look at that first attachment sometime and you kind of get the perspective we're coming from, we know that we want to try to get it the same. I just want to plant the seed. There could potentially be another survey of the schools if they'd like to go back to districts. So these tournaments that first round are smaller. That seems to be one of the big concerns. But Joe, I know you shared and heard a lot of information that sometimes how they feel is who they are.
Yeah, and who they're matched up with, for sure. Certainly out in Western Kentucky, everybody's trying to avoid Union counties. Those are territory.
Yeah. So with nothing for that, but it's just kind of keep it on your plate.
2.5.2, update on tennis restructuring issues.
Well, we spent a lot of time sharing with the meeting audiences that we know we've got to have a change in the way we do that facility wise. We plan on coming to you in November with some more concrete details of what that might look like and whether it is this year or the following year. It doesn't appear as though there'd be anything really harmed by going ahead and doing it, but we're also very conscious, and you heard Alan talking about the baseball weekend. We're a little off cycle with the normal NCAA baseball weekend. We're still a little bit early. Well, that's also that first weekend in June is when they've set the big Railbird Festival again. So we're really trying to watch what we try to put that weekend because housing will be at a premium. So other than that, just seed planting, sir.
5.3, update on upcoming diving event surveys.
Abby, you want to tell them a little bit about the structure? I know you and you're taking over diving from Sarah, but we've been looking at a way to retool diving, and I know you want to do a survey.
Yeah, and this is brand new to me, so Sarah chime in whenever this is
So currently, we're doing the 11 dive format, which allows our divers, but requires our divers to go through all 5 categories. They're much harder dives when they're doing the 11 dive format. Our consideration is to propose a 6 dive format, which would still allow those divers to do those same categories, but they'll have a little more leeway which dives they perform. We're hoping that, number one, because of participation, dive numbers going down, that with that 6 dive format, it will allow those divers who can't necessarily compete the harder dives to be able to complete all 6 dives when they're competing. You want to add anything?
I think the rationale right now, I think what she's trying to do is just gauge what our member schools want out of this. We know that where we've been with this 11 dive, we've not rebounded after COVID. The numbers are, I mean, we're trying to bring 40 kids in each gender, and we can't do that in boys. We don't even have 40 boys statewide. We don't know what our schools feel, and I think she's just wanting to put something together to kind of ask them where they want to go next. Do we want to leave it alone? Because what we see is if we leave it where it is, we're going to be one of those states that doesn't conduct diving eventually because it's continuing to decline. But she's just kind of wanting to gauge the schools and what their interest is at this point.
We understand that, if we make this change, it might not fix the problem. But right now, we're just kind of sitting and doing the same thing and hoping it gets better. And the numbers Sarah put together in the last 5 years clear that it's not getting better. So.
And there are a couple other states that are doing this. We're not the only ones. There's been a couple try some things. So.
Well, this is one of those that, as we talked in the office, hope is not a strategy, and we've tried that for a while. So we really are. I think there's a school of thought. Pennsylvania's tried it a little bit. Georgia
And Michigan.
And as just trying to is less time commitment and less involvement enticing a kid to get interested and get back in participation. The ones that have established programs, it's not going to affect one way or another. They're probably the ones that have been successful are probably still going to be successful. There is a certain group that no matter what you do, they're going to be successful. It's just as one of the ADs said in here one day, they've got a program, not a team. But that's not very many in our state right now.
I will say this for some of you that have very high programs in diving. The one negative we've heard is a 6 dive is not an All-American status. They can't do it if they don't do the 11 dive. What we're proposing is just for the postseason. Or if the schools want that, then we could entertain it for the postseason. We would not stop them from doing 11 dive series throughout the regular season so they could still get All-American status if they wanted to. At least that's our school of thought, because I know many of you have very strong swimming programs and you're going to go back and start talking about this. That's one negative we've heard with the 6 dive, and we wouldn't prohibit that during the regular season per se. So they could still have some big 11 dive invitationals where these kids could get that status.
When does the survey come out? When you guys send that?
Do you have a timeline?
Next couple of weeks, but there's just a ton of things going on right now. But we need to get that by the end of the month, for sure.
2.5.4, the recommended motions to accept the status reports, future championship items as submitted and directed necessary action. Been sitting here for a while. Let's take a very short break. It's 11:09. Let's say 11:15, a couple minutes after, but let's try to get back in there. Postseason team sports region tournament experimental formats. And start with 3.1.5.1 with a review of the 15th regional tournament experiment, which is in year 3.
I think he's actually on the phone.
Okay.
But just as by way of a background, in 2008, I believe it was, and we shared this with you this summer, began looking at what was a different way to do postseason tournaments if you didn't have 16 teams. And if you've ever looked at a map of the 15th region schools, they're in 3 pockets. They don't really have 4. There's a far eastern, a far western, and a far right in the middle. And so they began to look at it. They tried a couple times, scheduling and seating, broke it down, and they ended up being the first one to be approved. And we talked earlier about Mr. Crum going first, but if he's tied up, if you all want to, we have our representatives from the six. It's up to you, Mr. Kelly.
Sure,
Because they're not in any way, they're related in that they're talking about a different way, but they're not all doing the same way.
So we'll jump ahead and we'll come back to the 15th regional. We'll do a review of the 6th regional tournament experiment for softball and baseball. We have a presentation to be made by Mr. Larry Just of Butler High School and Troy Johnson of Park Creek High School.
I think did you attach all that?
It is.
Okay. So, I don't know if I come down here, you tell me. You gotta walk back up there.
We don't want to stress the stranger. You can sit down and be comfortable. You know, Coach Just doesn't require much maintenance.
This seems like a hot seat. But anyways, a few years ago, we started to try to figure out a way to help our region in softball and baseball. In the past, we have struggled in some of our districts to even have 2 and 3 teams, and sometimes we go into tournaments in our district tournaments thinking that there might be only 1 team in that district. So, and then you have other districts with our region have 5 teams. So we were thinking of ways that we can kind of explore, to help our region send better teams out towards the our regional tournament. Plus, financially, a lot of those district tournaments we're losing money. So anyways, I put this together. Coach Just and I kind of went back and forth, but it just tells you basically all we did is we kept all of our regional tournaments and put them in pods. Our district, so we put them in pods, and every single district was represented in a pod. The district winner, which was made during the regular season, which made regular season games mean a lot more in baseball and softball. Those district winners were the representative. They were the ones that run those pods. So they had every single district was represented within the pod, and then we basically played those games, and then we moved on to there was 16 teams in the baseball, and I think there was 17 teams in baseball, and there was 15 teams in softball. So I mean, I did just after the tournament was run, I just went back and send surveys out like we all do, just to see how it run. Most of the athletic directors said, look, we made way more money in these the pod situations than we did. And plus our regional, the last couple of years in softball, we actually lost money. We had to play at U of L, but this year we made money. So I think that was something that was financially it helped our region. The opportunities of being represented for kids, for student athletes, and we always gave those awards out for district tournaments. We did that every single game, kind of like the way you all do it in the state tournaments. After every game, the losing team they would have a person represented in the regional tournament. So regional team. So we had opportunities for all the players. But I mean, you can read through here the finances that were good. The fan experience seemed like it was more. There was better games in that second round than we had in the past. Some of the district tournaments weren't that way in the past, so it seemed like it was a better way to run a tournament. The equity part of it, of baseball and softball, a lot of times when we run district tournaments, the district tournaments are run at the same time. So some schools had to figure out which way they were going to go. So that's because baseball and softball were playing at the same time. Well, in this way, we were able to make it so that you could go watch baseball and you could go back and watch softball on different days. So it allowed the administration or fans or something like that to help that with that situation. And I think that helped with the finances too, that people were able to go to both instead of just, only having a district tournament and run at the same time. So you can see what we district champions, how they were crowned, kind of like the way we do in football. You play regular season, you get your first, second, third, fourth place teams. And like I said before, it seemed like there were some great regular season games where, and sometimes in baseball or softball, you might want to not show everything you have if you're going to have to go play the same team in a district tournament and the same team in a regional tournament. So that regular season game doesn't mean as much. But in this aspect, it does, because it says you're going to be the first place team in your district to host that pod. So how we did all that stuff, I'll let Coach Justin talk here, since he came up with me. Kind of how we did the the appeal system and how we got the brackets going.
Yeah, there's just to cap out a few other things. I'm District 22, and I was the district that was the issue when it came to softball. So it was always Butler, and we were hoping Doss or Iroquois or Western would have a team. And we were the ones that always seemed to have two teams, us and one other. And we'd start regional tournament on a Saturday, and they wouldn't show up. So we were forfeiting the first round of the region. Somebody was automatically getting to the Final Four and never play the first round of the region. So that's part of the reason why this started to come up. It's like, that's one, it's not a good look, number one. Number two, it also started to talk about other districts saying, we have some pretty strong teams in other districts that might be a third place or fourth place team. They should maybe have an opportunity to continue to play when we're not even having teams show up to play, for whatever those reasons may be. And so the other piece is, I was part of the realignment committee that we talked for a while, trying to get our stuff straight, and clearly we didn't. All right. So what I found out in my experience with this, we took somebody in this realignment committee. We had a representative from each district, and so from the 6th and 7th region. And we sat in the room. I think by and large, we all sat there and said, okay, we feel like these schools should be in the 6th region. These schools should be in the 7th region. We didn't have a whole lot of argument with that. When we tried to put them in the districts, that's when it became the issue. The issue was, and we did it in the meeting. I told the 7th region ADs, you put the 6th region in districts, and let's see how it falls out. 6th region didn't get a voice in it, and we did the flip flop with the 7th. But then we put it to the 6th and 7th region schools and said, vote on this. You like this idea or not? No, 50-50, because it all came back to, how's it affect me, right? Is it going to help my schools or not going to help my school? It's what it came down to. So this concept of a super regional for baseball, softball that we experimented with throws all that out. We know you're in the region, go play. Now we just have to put you in a spot that makes sense. And so what we try to do with this is keep some of the regional concept that we've had before, which was drawing pills. If you're a first place team, you're going to draw into a 1, 3, 5, 7 type bracket. If you're a runner up, 2, 4, 6, 8 opposite the winner. So you don't face them unless it's a finals. So we didn't want to lose that, because we felt like that was important to have some of that option to just kind of have some variety, if you will, and not kind of get locked in. But once we did that, then we took our third place team, we put them on the same side of the bracket as the second place team, but opposite the pot. So, and the fourth place was on the same side as the first place team, but opposite that pot. So theoretically, what happens right now is, if you have a strong district, which going into this year, District 24 will love this, because with the 3 bullets and Southern and more, when you get to baseball, there's a chance that 4 of those schools, if they're good enough, could be in our Final Four of the region, where before that clearly was never an option. When you start looking at this, the other piece that comes into play is the tiebreaker part. So if you go back to the traditional system we now have, you could have a 3-way tie for first place, but you could also have a 3-way tie for second, third, fourth, or fourth, fifth, or third, fourth, fifth. So now you're trying to judge and put people in, which it still is part of it, but now they do get a chance to still play in somewhere else. And they're not playing necessarily in their strong region or their strong district. They get a chance to maybe play somebody different. We in baseball this year, we had a chance to play, we played Fern Creek actually. And we lost in that round. And normally our first round, we'd advance. That wouldn't even be an issue. It was exciting. It was exciting to play somebody different that was not part of the norm because it felt like postseason. It didn't feel like, all right, we played these schools, we're playing again. Here we go. Let's get this tournament over so we can get to the real tournament of region. Once you stepped into the super region, you were ready. It's like it's time to go. The nice thing about baseball and softball, by the way it was set up, we played basically 2 games. We only had to get 4 in, right? We played 2 games in the first week of district week. We played 2 in the region week. That mirrors your state tournament, by the way. Okay, which is really important because when you look at it to go to state or win state in baseball, what do you got to have? 2 pitchers, right? Well, by the way the region is set up, you have to get the 3rd pitcher in there, or you have to have a combination just to get to state. So your best team may not even be able to get there if they don't have that 3rd piece. So right now, our regional tournament for baseball and softball, but primarily even the baseball, allowed us to mirror it. It also gave us extra time when it came to weather. This year we had great weather, didn't have to worry about it, but it gave us that extra time if we needed it. So we felt excited about all of this. And like Troy said, financially, off the charts. In District 22, I lose money every year in the volleyball tournament. District tournament, I lose it in the softball tournament because again of awards, of workers, umpires, officials, you name it. So we're paying to have those tournaments. When you put them into pods, now you're putting all those expenses into a bigger group. We're able to cover those expenses, and it's not coming out of the individual schools necessarily, like it had before. So I think the excitement of it, but just the logistics of it, and we didn't feel like we lost anything because we did honor and recognize district winners. They got their trophies, they were recognized. We got district and we got regional representatives and all tournament teams. Nothing seemed to get lost in that, even though I think we could still work to do more. We didn't feel like the experience was something that was negative. We felt it was positive at this point. And we didn't feel like the 17 teams was the big. I think because that was some of the concerns we heard. 16 or less, we want to stay with this. Going to the 17, it really didn't seem to affect us at this point because again, who is that 5th place team? That could really be a 3rd place team if you got a 3-way tie at the bottom of this thing. So it just kind of puts everybody into that option to apply. And like I said, we got nothing but great feedback from it.
Yeah. And we had put forward an ask for the soccer and the volleyball because the athletic directors in the schools feel like it's the best thing for our region. I mean, it's a good thing for what we do in our area.
Questions? Would you one more time, Larry, either you or either one, how you decided who was in what pod? When did you do it?
Okay, he put the dates down, so he took care of that pod. So basically the pods were set up just like I said, so you had a 16 team bracket as you go. And so when I said 1, 3, 5, 7, I kind of looked at it as that's the original regional bracket, and we kind of worked out, if you will.
Well, right before the turn.
Correct, almost like play-ins, if you will. So we took the 1, 3, 5, 7. We took your 4 district winners and made sure they were opposite everything that they need to. Your runner-up went opposite the winners, just like they always have at that point. And then your placement of your 3s and 4s went in accordingly. Just to kind of make sure that you had representation from every pod, district, so you weren't playing somebody from your own district in that first round, and usually second round, obviously. And that I think was the exciting part.
If you don't care, one more, because this has been one of the concerns that staff's expressed about our current experiment the 15th. It's too tight a timeline. Our signers have expressed problems, et cetera. What kind of time frame did you do that draw/pod setting before the first playing date? Was it the weekend before, a week before? Do you recall?
Thursday before.
Okay, so they had 2 or 3 days to plan and schedule and sign. Perfect. That's awesome. I'm just trying to absorb things.
It's, those are signers are already historically had been planning to assign the district tournaments. So they're not doing any additional assigning. They're just assigning, it's the regional, super regional, which is being started during the district tournament week.
Right. But the difference, Dave, is that when you're using outside officials, it's a different story.
But
You all are inside. So it's a little bit of baseball works inside.
Right.
So it's a little different. That's all.
And then they also, if y'all don't mind, because I've looked, we're 7 sort of sat on the sideline and watched, obviously, and I worked with the softball tournament, and I have been there the year where somebody showed a regional game. I mean, they can't even imagine forfeiting a regional game, which has occurred. It's sort of what led to this softball. The district champion had another benefit out of winning the regular season championships. They got to host the first round pod. So the district champion hosted the first 2 rounds at their school. And then the 4 pod winners advanced to the semifinals of the region. And then baseball and softball, those had moved to U of L. I mean, overwhelmingly from what they have said to us and talking to other 6 region people, all the schools, it's the rare thing where all the schools actually are in agreement.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Rarely we have this much agreement.
We're sending you guys to the Middle East next.
Yes.
I saw that and it says unanimous for baseball, softball, and soccer.
Yeah. I think the timing, based on your all's historical discussions about this and our application of it, frankly, it came a little late. Seeded games had already been scheduled for this year, but depending on what you do, they've got all kinds of opportunities going forward. I mean, depends on what you all decide.
So what would be the standard, like if ADs change and schools change their mind, would it have to be unanimous to do this, or 2/3? What's your policy, or what? If somebody comes in, new AD, says I don't want to do the same one.
And not that there's any transition coming in your ADs group or anything, but
That's what I'm saying. You don't get stuck in a situation where it's not unanimous. What's the default then?
Remember, we had asked you, I think, originally about what we thought the threshold was that we would have approval. And I think the group would always lean on KHSAA for, like, what do you think the appropriate threshold is for us to do this?
Yeah, almost everything's been 2/3. If you get that,
You obviously done the work everybody liked. I'm just trying to think ahead. If somebody doesn't want to do this.
And I think the 2/3, we had some resistance to this before. One of your members decided she was not on board with that.
Correct.
So we did hold off. But I do think a 2/3 certainly seems to make the most sense, because very rarely you're right. You're not going to get it on the same page. And you're not, because again, once they start doing this and they see how it affects their school, you're going to start getting some of that pushback, like it's not affecting, it's not helping us anymore. So I'm not for it. So it's coming. We do know it's coming.
Yeah, I think one of the found benefits that I don't think we even really appreciated was having the 2 weeks to play the tournament.
Around all those activities.
Versus everybody thinking in your mind, the ADs in here, you got your district, and some people's districts over on Wednesday, and some people playing in Saturday, and you're sort of waiting around till region starts next week. Well, this thing is already cranking out, and you, like they said, if it's outdoor event with weather or something where you need to adjust your schedule, you have a lot more built-in time for flexibility on your scheduling and getting the tournament done in 2 weeks.
So it's 4 pods of 4 teams a pod, correct?
Right.
So if you have less than 16, well, how do you determine like how the buys, like, because I'm assuming if you have 14 teams, right, 2 people are getting I would assume the 1 seed and 2 of the pods are getting a buy. So how's that determined? Is that a draw thing, or is that just a?
Yeah, it was a draw thing this past year.
So it's kind of.
And of course, we ran into it with softball, and
We went 15.
So, but what we had was the difference of 2 in one district, 5 in another. So how do you start balancing that as far as pods go? So basically, I think we tried to follow the football model, take a 4, move it to a 3, and move 5 down to a 4, and things like that. But it's not as simple as saying you've got 15. It's still the balance of how many's in a district to make sure you can start that drawing process.
So you make the school commit that they're gonna be there prior to the draw, honestly, because you
Yeah.
said you had a 4 foot before. Apparently, we have a team that competed in a district tournament game as a 2 seed. There was only 2 teams in a district and
They got
and
moved
then
on.
they just got drawn, they got put into the region. They just didn't show, correct? So you're making sure there's a commitment prior to from all these schools saying we will be there on that game. We're committed to the super region.
Right. I think we put a date like I think in baseball, softball, I think we made a commitment date like May 1st this year that you're going to have a team. Because a lot of times what happens is you get down at the end of the year and then they don't have a team.
And in that particular sport, historically, we are right around Memorial Day. I don't know if this would apply to all sports, but I think part of the reason we were in Porpoise is we were starting a regional tournament on the weekend. Somewhere over Memorial Day, we were starting, and we had schools that, hey, we can play on weeknights. Our kids, they're not going to play on the weekend. So all of a sudden, you could play in the district tournament on weeknight, and then but not play over the weekend is probably what led to us having those quarters. And I believe all of that, if the super regional starts on a Monday or Tuesday, it would take care of itself on the teams that were committed to play if they can play on a weeknight.
You start the regional on Saturday because you get the 3 games in for your regional, weather and everything else.
Right.
You start
We're trying to make sure we're building in rain days and all the other things.
Now we have
So what if any of the sports are like more than 16?
yeah. We
Baseball,
had
it's
that this
17.
past year in baseball.
So how did that look like as a seven? Like I'm thinking 16 teams. How does the 17th team fit into that? Just a play-in game, or just a random draw, one of the pods, a play-in game.
Yep.
Like a 4-5 type game.
A pod that had 5 in it.
Yep. And then if we had 2 teams, 2 districts that had 5 and everybody else had 4, then we would play the 2 5s versus each other to play into that one. I know the athletic directors are wanting to know what we're going to do this, moving forward. So that was the question that we had.
We can do this year, I guess, is the question, or
Yeah, that's what they've got to, it's a different, the unusual thing is in all the early discussions, there was never a thought of 17. There was discussion of 16 or fewer because of the number. And then last year, some of the ones that didn't play every year joined in because you had the super regions. So, and there was concern that I know one person who might have formerly worked here who was concerned that it might be a Title IX issue as well, doing softball one way and baseball the other. I think we're beyond that discussion because you had 17 all want to opt in last year, and the playing game with Iroquois Western. And looking at some of the games down through there in the past, those are teams that maybe have not played in postseason in some years when it was a traditional district. Because there was a lot of times you and one other school that's pretty good in baseball were the 2. And you're trying to figure out what you're going to do.
Questions from any other discussion? Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you all.
Going backwards to 3.1, 5.1 from Ron.
All right. Apologize earlier. I had a very important call. All right. So, Commissioner Tackett asked me if I could just give an update and explanation on how we did things in the 15th region. And I know we've had some turnover on the board from when it was approved originally, so that everyone can make sure they understand the way it works. And interestingly, there's some similarities I didn't realize in the way that we do ours with the way they do. The only major difference is that we maintain the actual district tournament as a lead-in to the region. And so what we do, and of course we are that 14 team. We have 2 3-team districts, which was the catalyst for why we realized we needed to do something, because what we were seeing, and it actually happened in our region, that a District 1 seed doesn't have an opponent in the first round, then they lose to the 2-3 seed, and they've advanced to an 18 regional tournament, didn't even win a game. They lost their way into a regional tournament. So, that was a really big issue that we felt like we needed to tackle, and that there needed to be some way to provide some equity between 3-team and 14 districts, which was what we face in every sport. So the thing, though, that was more of a catalyst, our region did like the tradition of the district tournaments, the history of the district tournaments, and wanted to maintain that. So what we did was, and like I said, similar to what they do, only theirs is based off the regular season seeding. Ours is actually, that district tournament in our region is extremely important. As you all know, in most other regions, I mean, that district championship game sometimes, depending on it, it could be anticlimactic because both teams are advancing onto the region. So, and depending on how those draws work out, sometimes, I mean, I know during Johnson Central's 4-year run that one time, we lost district championship 2 of the 4 years because our district was tough, but we got a better draw in the regional tournament because you did have a couple 3-team districts that were, it worked itself out. So what we wanted to do was provide some equity. So we play the district tournaments as is. So you have the 2 3-team districts and you have the 2 4-team districts. The day after the first round games, okay, that following morning, we go and do basically we call it the first 4. It's almost like the NCAA tournament has those first 4 where they do the playing games in. So that's basically what we're left with, because in our region, you will have the loser of that 2-3 game in the 2 3-team districts. You will have 2 losers in the 14 districts. So there are 6 schools who lose that first game. The following morning, we go to those schools and we gather them at the central location, and we do a draw for those 6 schools. The higher seeded ones, so there's 4, technically 3 seeds, because from the 2 3-team districts and the 14. So there's technically 4 higher seeds. Then you have 2 4 seeds. So they were the lowest seeded ones going in that lost. Those 2 are automatically placed into the bracket that they're going to be drawn out. If you were the lowest seed that advanced, you can't buy out of that playing game. The 4 3 seed are the 4 teams that draw, just like you would in a regional, like the winners would in a regional tournament. Those 4 districts, and they go in the same order they do for the regional, like whatever district goes, we just follow the same procedure. So they will draw out. If you are that 3 seed, you're either going to draw a bye, because there's 2 byes in the hat, and there's 2 4 seeds in the hat. You're either going to draw a bye, and you get to skip the first 4, or you draw one of those 4 seeds. And to make it fluid under the time constraints, we just make, if that 3 seed draws a 4 seed that have to play, that game is automatically played before the district championship game at that district site. And that revenue goes to that district. That way it's not something we have to cloudy up or worry about how do we collect gate for a specific game. Whoever that higher seed is at 3, it would automatically be played there. So I know, like last year, for example, East Ridge was a 3 seed. That was a 3-team district. They drew an opponent. I want to think Paintsville went up to East Ridge, or they went up there to that district, to the 59th district, and they played that playing game to play it for the district championship. That basically, through that process, you move down to, our goal is to get to 12 teams. Okay, so and with 14 teams, you have to eliminate 2 of those. That's why you do the first 4. Because once you have 12 teams, it kind of goes in process the way that they were discussing. So those district championship games are really vital, because if you win the district, okay, you are a 1 seed and you automatically go into that draw with the 1, 3, 5, 7 in Pills. Okay, so you are automatically in the round of 8. If you lose that district championship game, if you're the runner-up, you are a 2 seed, and now you will play the first 4 winners. Basically, you're going to play those 3 seeds. Now, you had cases where in these last 2 years we've experimented where a 4 seed beat a 3 seed in that first 4. They just take the spot of that 3 seed in the tournament. Our regional tournament draw is identical to every other regional tournament draw in the state. There is zero difference in our draw in any of your draws. The 4 district winners, you'll come together. 4 district winners draw 1, 3, 5, 7. The runners up will be opposite, and they'll do 6, 8, 2, 4. The only difference in ours is as soon as that draw is finished, you place the other schools, and you basically follow the same type of thing. If you are a 1 seed, the 2 seed goes to the opposite bracket. With a 3, if from that district, they automatically go to the same side as the 2, but opposite. So that way you're maintaining your district winners will never see a runner-up or their 3 seed until the championship game. Is the way we set it up. Now, if a 4 seed advances, then they could be bracketed with the 1 seed because of the way that would work out. But our goal was to always keep the 2 and 3 away from the 1. And that way you're not seeing district opponents have to play each other. Like I said, the only instance that will ever happen is if a 4 seed is able to advance their way all the way, into that round of 8. So, but what we found and what we did is on that Saturday, before regional tournament play, the round of 8 would start on Monday night. On Saturday, those 4 games are played. So your district runners up, and we allow them currently to host at their site. There's been some discussion about maybe having a central location where everybody can watch all 4 games, and we may look at that in the future. But right now, those 4 runners up, they get to host that game on a Saturday. And when we meet, we draw it out. So if a boys team and a girls team are both happen to play a play-in, we'll even look at the game times and we stagger them. And that also helped address, because I do think some of those concerns, it was last year it was flawless. Now we have a different, some of the complaints were some issues with the assigner at the time and some of the teams that were from the 3-team districts, I think. But the situation that we got in this last year worked out flawlessly. Like I said, if you had a team that was in both, we did afternoon and night games. So that way the admin, the group, whatever, if you were playing, and if one team happened to host both, like Shelby Valley last year, they had a boys and a girls game. They were runners up in both, and they got to host. We scheduled as a doubleheader. So it was a girl-boy doubleheader at their venue. So it worked out really well. But we just sit down and work on those game times. The 16th region did our officiating last year, and it was flawless because all those games occurred on a Saturday. He was able to sign, I think he used most all of his officials and was able to sign those out to those games on that Saturday. But your winners, they're just populated to the same regional tournament bracket like all of you would have, and those winners just advance right on into the bracket. And so it creates, for the last 2 years, we've had unbelievably exciting regional tournament games. Revenue's been up. The excitement has been high. Those district championship games are really, really exciting because there's something big at stake. You're going to have to play another game if you lose that district championship. So even the naysayers, a lot of some of the media people were not too much in favor from the traditional viewpoint, but they were all coming up after that first year and said, wow, this has been the most exciting regional tournament that we've seen. So it's gone real well. And as far as Johnson Central goes, I mean, we were a victim, like he was saying there earlier, we lost, we would have been advanced in, and I still think it's the right thing to do, because I think it allows equity between the 3 and the 14 districts. And we're looking at it now in other sports as well, because I do think it's a good solid thing from all angles. Any questions? Does it make sense? Any questions? I mean, that's how we do it. It's really not a whole lot different. And there's some similarities to what they do there. It's just we actually play that district tournament out.
Any questions or comments?
So playing the district tournament, that didn't hurt you all time-wise. I think Zoop and them said that was a good thing for them, but I feel like you're keeping
in year one, just because we've not done it before, that there was, and I think that's where some of those, issues that had come up. But I do think this last year we were able to work through those really well. It really wasn't an issue at all because that game was like the 58th district hosted one of those. So they just had a doubleheader district championship. You know, the first one was actually a playing game. Their 3 seed from that district played a 4 seed, and then you had the district championship game right after it. So you're able to bring your officiating crew in, and I mean, it worked. It worked really well last year all the way around. So we feel like we've worked those kinks out because basically those playing games are on the same timeline with your district tournament. And the only difference is we just do all those play-ins on Saturday, and then we always start our regional tournament on Monday before. So what we did do was we did tell all districts, and that's a good question I didn't cover. All districts had to finish by Thursday night, not Friday night, because we did our regional tournament draw on Friday morning, because that way you had to have a day to prepare for your game. So that was the only difference, is we just had those districts draw. And actually, one of the districts, because in Pike County, where they've got 5 schools, they have 2 3-team districts. They wanted to. They don't want to have their championships on the same. They want to be able to get to multiple games. I guess the board of ed staff and stuff. So they actually started their district in one of those on a Saturday night. I mean, that was up to them. That district just voted to do that, and they were able to alternate theirs on out through. So I think as they started to learn and see how the format works, they were able to customize, how that district voted on how they wanted to do their tournament. The only parameters we gave them was you have to have your first round finished by Monday night, because we got to do that first 4 draw on Tuesday morning in girls, and in boys the following morning, so that those could play out. And that way Friday morning you had your regular regional tournament draw.
From Mr. Crum. Thank you, sir. Moving to 3.1.5.3, a review of the 11th Region Tournament Experiment request, and we will be joined by Henry Clay's Athletic Director, Mr. Christian Jucker.
Hi, everybody. I'm Henry Clay, but I'm here to represent the 11th region, and did they have the stuff I sent?
They should have it.
Okay. So I'll try to be brief. I have to go back to school here in a little bit, teach and do stuff like that. With ADing. But first I want to say, I know this was a while ago, but the Legends have been great with us and with our region too. They've hosted a day for our region tournaments. Say thanks to them. But I'm here to speak about the request for the format change. And this kind of came about because, I guess for a few reasons, but we financially in our region, we were hoping, I guess, as part of the proposal, there were a few different parts. It was that we were going to have it at a college venue, and then move to hire a full-time manager for the event, like some of our other regions have done in the state. And then kind of create a way to equitably disperse the revenue back to our schools. And we have, there's just a discrepancy. If you were one of the teams that make, as an example, on the boys side, if you make the tournament, you're one of the 8 teams, it's about $7,000, or could be up to $6,000 or $7,000 more you can make for making the tournament. And so we hope to create a larger revenue. And with that discrepancy would be even more, we think, if we just gave that money back to those teams. So we wanted to include all of the teams in our region. I talked to Noel about what he was doing, and that's how we came up with this idea to include all of our teams. We're still, in our proposal, we are keeping the district tournament. It would all be the same. Just the only large change to that was just ask them to start it on Sunday. And for some of the teams that have, or some of the districts that have 5 teams, and then to as a team, as some of the, like the 5-4 game, if they lost, those teams would be entered into the region tournament as a play-in game. And then as we get to the next week, as the traditional region week, that for the most part is just staying the same. If you win the district, you get, you're automatically in, and but all the other teams will get to try to play into that main week of the region tournament. So it's kind of all in those slides, and the format is there. So I guess try to be brief if you guys have any questions or ask.
I think one of the differences, Christian, that we talked about is the fact that you all have 19 that generally play every year. Virtually nobody opts out of basketball practice on top of practice. So
I think that Frankfurt Christian did it.
Frankfurt Christian
Did it play?
maybe on one
Did they
gender.
play?
Maybe.
Maybe on one gender. So it's 18 solid.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that one of the reasons we wanted to pull these together after listening to you all talk about it in August is it's different ways of doing the regional. Board probably needs to absorb it. You're probably going to have a lunch break, and then you're going to have to decide, do you leave the cutoff where it is now? Because I think at some point, you may value people trying something different, and at some point you may want to stick with what's been going. I don't know. But I really, Christian responded very well. There was a lot of things in that first proposal, and it just pull out the bracketing, because all the other stuff, we agree they can solve most of it locally. But this is really a unique way of doing a large region. So, and I think you all came down to where it may be one day early on that Sunday play, and so and everybody's not going to favor it, but part of the issue is, and this is what the conversation centered about, as you all were talking about it. If you have something that everybody is so complex that everybody can pick a negative on one aspect, then it suddenly doesn't have support, when really maybe their problem was the site, or this problem was the money distribution, or this is just the bracketing. That's what you all govern, is the bracketing, how they meet and how they distribute their money and everything. That's always been a local issue, because they get the money, we don't. So the board just talks about the bracketing, and how important is it to be the same? That's up to you all. But this is a different way of doing it, similar but not the same, and recognizes, because as I said, there was a couple of things that, especially the first year, but even last year, I think that any problems with the current experiment, the 15th, I know we've moved on, but the current experiment, the 15th, probably can be solved by communications from them. The people actually operating the sites were not very communicative, keeping our people updated on what's going on. And we were getting tons of just bombarded with questions, including us. The other thing that's different about Christian's situation is if they were to integrate something with the district tournament that's working inside, they have a full stable of officials that don't have very many scratches. That's not necessarily true in other regions, where the officiating is more than just the timing. It's I like it, but oh, by the way, I can't use this guy because this one happened to him in 1970 and this happened in 85. And so it's a little different. So each one of these that you decide to entertain is going to be a little bit different situation. You all have a good number of officials, which kind of eliminates some of their work.
I have a question. Yours is different than the other two, because I'm just looking at your financials, but you all do you have a sponsorship, like a sponsor that
Well, we hope to add that.
That's director.
We just hired the person. She starts October 1st to be our tournament manager, and our hope is that that person can, through our teams and things, can really create. We don't have a huge sponsor right now, and that's a potential for us.
Do you agree? This is pro forma. It's hope based on what you hired or plans.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't think it was an actual.
Yeah.
And then your tournament manager will just do the basketball. Will they do all the other?
Just basketball. Yes.
Questions or comments?
And thank you all for looking at this in advance, because there was a lot of detail provided.
The ask here is just the allowance to do an experiment. Is that what? I just want to be clear. Is that what the ask is?
Yeah, right now the bracketing is set up in the competition rules to be the same in every region. The board made a deviation for the 15th because of their numbers. It made a deviation on the 6th a year ago because of their baseball softball situation. They're asking for permission to do something different on their bracketing. That's really all we would have governed. Not the money, not the manager, not the site. Technically, we select the site, but if they can get 2/3 to agree, the selection is a whole lot easier.
But
How'd they go?
she's asking though is,
Vote today.
our discussion is, are we going to allow regions to do this if they have
More than
15
16,
teams?
yeah, more than 16. The later action item is about bringing that 2008 policy back up before the board. And do you want to leave the limit at 16 teams? Do you want to leave
15
that?
has 14, right?
Yeah, 15 plus 14.
14 teams.
Y'all, first has 15, the 15th has 14. I think it's the two that are woefully short. Because you all had Jenkins in, but they still just made 15 and that didn't work out. They went back.
Yeah, I mean, they were playing out of their own county. They wanted to go back.
Exactly.
Is the request based on majority or other schools input?
So the vote was 11-7, is that correct?
I think so.
But the vote was not specific to the super region format. The vote was one vote for
right
the location, the tournament manager. So it wasn't a vote specific to the super region, and it was not a 2/3 majority.
You just couldn't say, and he and I've had this conversation. You couldn't say that 2/3 wanted the bracket, but didn't have 2/3 on the site because it was presented all in one. That's the difference. And I think obviously they made the commitment to hire a manager, so that's a big step.
You're saying the only thing this group really is considering is the allowance of a format change.
The cutoff.
The rest of it.
That's really all we got.
Except that region.
Yeah.
Determined by the region.
That's all we covered.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry, it took so long.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, Ken, yes.
At this time, before we go to lunch, we're going to ask Mr. Schlosser to come down. He's the superintendent of Simpson County Schools for a presentation. Morning.
How are you?
Afternoon.
Good morning for you guys.
Almost lunchtime back home.
All right, I'll keep this short. I know, I want to thank Commissioner Tackett and Greg and the Board of Control for allowing me to be here to speak today. You probably have no idea why I'm here. And as being a superintendent, I understand open comments, you get 3 minutes, so I'll do this really fast. And if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those. I am Tim Schlosser. I'm the superintendent at Simpson County Schools. Just a little bit of my background. This is my 32nd year in education. I've been an athletic director, assistant principal. I've been a head football coach. I've been a tournament manager for the 4th region basketball, softball, baseball. I've been a high school principal and now finishing my 7th year as superintendent. Athletics are very important to me. And this is, and I think it's one of the most important pieces to educating kids today in our schools. I really do believe that. And I want to be very clear. My number one goal in talking about this is about providing opportunities for kids. That's, and I'm speaking about athletics today, but all aspects of school are important. Orchestra, tennis, track, band. I mean, I could go on and on about all the different. And the reason I mentioned orchestra, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a few minutes, but we started orchestra 4 years ago in Simpson County. We've had to hire a second teacher. We've got 190 kids involved in orchestra. We've had a tennis team at Franklin Simpson High School I've been there 32 years. We've had one for 32 years. We had 2 tennis courts at the public park. I convinced our board to spend $1 million and build a tennis complex. Last year, we had 36 kids play tennis. Are we going to win the tennis region? No. Are we going to be a state powerhouse? No. We have 36 more kids committed to school now than we had before. We had 4 the year before. Track, we've had a very successful track program, but we've not had a regulation track in Simpson County in 32 years I've been there. We've had one around the football field, but it wasn't regulation, and we couldn't hold track meets. Well, I convinced our board to build a track. We had 66 kids run track last year. we've gotten more kids involved. We gave them opportunities to be involved. So, and I'm preaching to the choir. I know you guys know this, but when you create opportunities for kids, it makes for a better school year, better behavior, climate, culture, academics, all those things are better. So what I'm here to discuss today, and just to talk to you for just a minute, I'm here to see more teams. I'm not here to see more teams or schools get bigger trophies. That's not what I'm here about. That's not my motivation. It's my motivation is to create opportunities for success. I would like to, and if I'm correct in saying this, Julian, correct me if I'm wrong. I know we've had this conversation before, but I would like for the Board of Control to seriously consider piloting a class system in a sport. I don't care which one, pick one, volleyball, soccer, one, and just pilot it for a year and see how it works. We have class systems in football, in track. If I'm not mistaken, I think in 1926 is that when we did a class system in track. Someone decided big schools shouldn't play against little schools. It's not going. They got more opportunities, more kids. So we did it in 1926, and that's just the reason it's way. It's been that way for a long time. I believe what happens in college athletics trickles down to high school. There may be NIL money. There's not NIL money in Simpson County. I can tell you that. But there are kids transferring. Parents move their kids to where they want their kids to play and in bigger schools. And, 50 years ago, we were predominantly rural schools in Kentucky. There's been a lot of consolidation and there's still more consolidation. Kids just need to be a part of something. It's hard to get kids excited to be about something that they have little chance of success. They need a place, to belong and have some hope and be a part of something. I was a head football coach for 15 years. When we went to 6 classes, I remember the world was coming to an end. Oh my goodness. 6 classes. It's going to be watered down. It's going to, I heard all that. I was a head football coach at the time. But I can tell you this, not one team walked out of Kroger Field in December and felt like they were less of a champion. They were state champions, and being a football coach for a long time, I've been doing this for 35 years, coaching and being a part of it in athletics. When I was coaching, there were schools that were about to lose their program because we were in 4 classes. They never had success ever. They were getting ready to lose their programs, and we went to 6 classes. Now, some of them haven't won state championships, but I can tell you they've won regional championships. They've been to the Final Four. They've advanced to the second round of the playoffs, which they've never done, and they've galvanized their community. And people got really excited about it and had that, so, I'm not going to go through all the research, which I could. I've got all this about, the teams that have won state championships and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't want you to think I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. But, there's, because it's not about the state champion. It's about creating success. We have some areas of the state that only a handful of teams participate. It's interesting to hear some of these different things going on in different. We don't have a lot of that in our area in the 4th region, teams not participating. But there are areas that, have 8 or 9 teams playing volleyball, and the same teams won the region every single year. So it's kind of hard to get kids excited to think, well, it's not going to be a lot of fun. I may come out and play, but might not. But I want to close with this. In my opinion, it is our job, and I've learned this, as when I was high school principal. I don't think I really knew that much about it, but when I became superintendent, I learned about it. Is as superintendent, you can create opportunities for kids as your job. And I think that's our number one job in education, is to create opportunities for kids and, across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I firmly believe a class system in athletics. And, let's, like I said, pick a sport. I'm not saying basketball, I'm not saying football. They've got their thing going on, but let's pick one and see if it works and try it out. And I firmly believe that's a great place to start. I'm happy to discuss anything, any questions. I don't have, I've told you about everything I know about it, what I think about it. I've not researched other states and that kind of stuff yet, but I do know that I feel like if we were to create a class system, it would create opportunities for kids across the state of Kentucky to have some success, and to, I think it would create success in their communities, their schools. I mean, I'll tell you one quick story. Our girls soccer team is pretty good this year. They're 9-1. They went to that little 2A thing. We had to reschedule all our games to do it. poor people in the community came in, bought them a charter bus, took them, they went to Bardstown to play, and they had big signs, had a send off, and this, that, and the other. They're 9-1. They're probably not going to advance much after the first round of the regional tournament, but those kids are super excited. Our school's excited about it. Our kids are, even kids that don't even know anything about soccer, are excited for those girls. And it's created a great opportunity for them. And I would like to see it for kids across the entire state of Kentucky. So that's all I've got. I don't know if I stayed within 3 minutes or not.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
If you need that, I'll understand when you gotta get them more.
All right. This time we're going to break for lunch. It's 12:18. Let's try to get restarted at 12:45. We've still got a lot to plow through to get through the day. Okay. All right, welcome back. We are going to go back up to item 3.1.2, which is classified sports discussion. 3.1.2.1. A enrollment factor discussion on football of single gender versus combined.
We don't have to decide this today, but deciding this might help you with other discussions you're considering having. A few years back, we had for decades, we had aligned football based on the total school enrollment. And a few years back, we decided to change football to where we only aligned it based on the number of boys. What we have discussed with the summer, we discussed it, and going around to the regional meetings, we discussed it. There may be some advantage to going back to aligning football by the total student enrollment. And that advantage comes in, it could make your discussion about other classifications much simpler if you already have boundaries. We talked at the regional meetings, for example, about the boundary lines for 1A and 2A becoming your 1A track, and your 3 and 4A becoming your 2A track, and your 5 and 6A becoming a 3A. And what that would naturally do is make the meets a little smaller in the classes that have the most extreme, because the biggest differences occur obviously in the largest class and the smallest class, because a very few students is a huge percentage difference in a small school, where you put everybody in the middle just together and you go out. What that would let you do, so maybe like what Tim said earlier, if you were interested in piloting something, you could take those 6 group boundaries and maybe it's 2 groups and you try soccer, or 3 groups and you try something else. You don't have to make them identical, but if we get back to using total school enrollment, we've really only got to get those numbers for you one time, and everything else plays out. So it was just a thought. We started talking about it last spring about because that's going to drive between now and November 13 or 14, whatever the board meeting date is. We won't have the KDE enrollment numbers. That usually is released to us about December, after they've purified everything. They have to go through and make sure there's no mistakes. But we get them. So if we kind of had an inkling, the only reason this is on here is a potential discussion item. Is there interest in us looking at that? I've looked at what the classification would have done to this year's football alignment. It might have made a difference in 11 or 12 schools. And you never know what that really is till you see the current numbers. Remember when you went to going to 2 years, no set of numbers that factored into last time's placement for now is going to be involved this time. It's two totally different groups, 2 totally new years. So
would it have made those schools go up or down?
Half and half.
Half and half.
And it's the ones that float around the dividing line. It's a school that maybe was 5 kids too low for this one. Now they're 5 kids too high for the other one. It doesn't make a
How
significant.
do the single sex schools factor into that?
When you classify according to the current competition rules, when you classify on total school enrollment, you double the single sex schools. Just pure doubling. So a school that enroll girls only, you double their enrollment before you look at where you rank them. That's already in place for track, and was what we did in football until we went to boys only. We did not change anything about boys only.
Has there been, you talked about this at the regional meeting?
Yes.
Were there any opposing feedback?
None. No, as a matter of fact, everybody was like, that makes sense, because then you're classifying schools, not classifying
I've
sports.
not heard any, that, I was just
No.
wondering if there was any.
No, we didn't. We asked about it as staff. We didn't hear a thing. I mean, everybody said that made sense. They would kind of know where they're going to land in the other things, especially the track and cross country folks. They kind of want to know. And you got to do that this year. It wouldn't go into effect till cross country 26. But, this year you're going to be looking at numbers for both football and track and cross country and anything else you should decide to try to experiment with.
So I'm gonna ask one more time. So what's the main benefit out of changing? Well, I hate to change things that aren't broken sometimes, but the main benefit is what?
You would the board would be looking at classifies numbers one time.
I guess my question is, like, how
No,
much time
we
is that
asked
saving us? And number two, like, what the skew is? Like, what's the biggest discrepancy? Like, do we have a school with 30% girls and 60% boys?
So that means Central High School is the one that keeps jumping in my mind because
they would be impacted
60%
60%
percent female.
Yeah.
So they probably would move up, even though they only have 35% of their population.
They would be back where they were for decades.
They would. So I guess the thing in my mind would be, what's the appropriate place to base football on the number of boys or school enrollment is the question, I guess.
That's it.
So if you have a school that only has 35% boys, in some way they could be bumped up to a bigger class because of their overall enrollment.
Yeah, you could have an anomaly among your 291. Yes, you sure could.
But I think those anomalies will be few and far between, I think.
Well, I mean, that's what the reason bringing it up today is, what do you need to make that call? What do you need that data that has the percentage?
I would love to see data.
Well, we wouldn't have this year.
Right, but I would like to see the skew, right? I would like to see the potential skews, both ways, honestly, right? Just because I don't want to do that to them if it's going to mean we talk about something for 15 minutes and somebody pulls data. You know what I mean? If it's an easy thing, I don't know. Maybe I'm.
Well, regardless what we do, let me tell you, when I got on the board, football was one of those that there was a lot of parameters. At the last board meeting, I asked the question, why were we doing boys?
Yeah.
Just male enrollment. And I think the Football Coaches Association stepped in. I think maybe had a plan for that, and it was adopted by the board. No other sport are we doing that with, when it's affecting a minority of schools. When we went from the not to be able to move up, move down, we thought when we realigned, we thought we would have a lot of feedback, and it's been smooth as silk. This would just be a push to where we're still defining schools by school and not by gender.
Yeah, I would add to that, the move to enrollment has cut down on calls and discussion about.
Yeah,
I should have been here, I should have been
a
there.
couple of you have sidebar asked about other items, and it's one last chance. Do you want those items? Because this is a process that takes 2 to 3 meetings and is finalized once you get numbers as far as football classes. So if you want any of the parameters to change, what we don't want to do is start working on that. Let's say we get the numbers earlier in November than normal. We don't want to start working on that, and then somebody said, no, wait a minute, let's change this. Let's do something different now. Because I think we've talked about the advantage. This is the 1 year you could do this, because you do have track and football the same year as far as reclassifying. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. It makes a whole lot of sense. It would be classifying schools, but there's going to be people that no matter what you do, and no matter how good you think the data metrics are, there's going to be people that are unhappy, and there's going to be people that are happy. It's going to both be. It always will.
I just pulled up real quick in the state. For the past 3 years, there's about 20,000 less females across the state. This is the state average, and it's been the same.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's the gap's getting bigger. Compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, but those numbers are for recent times have been holding pretty close. There's not that much. There's less than 10% difference between boys and girls across the state.
Yep.
So are we talking only football, or are we talking football, track, and cross country? What does track and cross country do currently?
Track and cross country is full student body, double enrollment for the gender.
I mean, my initial instinct, and I'm not ruling anything out, at least in my opinion, our going to football should be, because this is primarily, it's a boys' co-ed sport, is try to get the teams based in the classes that fit the enrollment of boys, not necessarily the enrollment of the school. I don't know, and maybe it's just because I'm familiar with the one scenario out of the blue moon, you know. But you can sell me on there's the other part of the benefit piece maybe outweighs this slight change. I don't know.
And to his point, when Mr. Schlosser was talking, if we ever want to look at any type of class or anything else, this is that footprint that would help set that. And doing it now just makes sense while we're in.
But this is football is a one-off. Like it's by itself. If we ever looked at classes and anything else, we'd be talking about boys and girls sports. There is no girls sport connected to football. Am I thinking about this right way? Nothing we would do in football that we could really apply towards any other team sport.
I think what this does is it simplifies it to where you're only classifying one time. If you're schools, yes.
It would just align football with track and with cross country jump.
The top number in A would be the top number. If you looked at what I said earlier, the bottom number in A would be your boundary. I guess 0 is your boundary. And the top number in 2A, that would be your boundaries for the 1A track. And same thing for 3. You would use one time you go through. If you had any other factors you add in, anything else, you look at data one time. That's just one way of doing it. You're not going to find, this is not going to be something that data analytics will keep arguments away. I'm just telling you, we've been doing it for years. We've changed a little something every year.
Right.
No, you get it. I mean,
no, there's a lot of things we talk about that reasonable people can argue both
right.
sides. So I understand.
But what we could do is use a nondescript set of numbers. If we had, for example, the last 2 years of enrollments. So those would not, what we would be using is last year's and this current school year. So think of it, we're using 24-25 and 25-26. We could get you a scenario that's got 23-24 and 24-25 and see what that looks like. And that would not be 100% accurate predictor of the way it's going to land when you get this year's numbers.
I'm okay with that. Just
But you would at least have something.
It would be close. Yeah, it'd be in the ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be closer to where you could kind of see the scenarios, what the modeling looks like.
I'm fine with that. I just want to see what we could be talking about, right?
Right.
In a given year, who it could affect, and not even who. It doesn't matter who.
Right.
The numbers, right? Who would go up? Who would go down? Who, or the number of people that would go up with the number of people that go down. I don't want names by anybody, just to see
Right.
who it affects, because everything that we're talking about, why football was place could be thrown out the door with this, right? And for some teams.
Oh yeah, and there'll be winners and losers.
Right.
There'll be people that gain.
For sure.
Because I know when we first started, and the board has done the football alignment for years, and always the concern was, how can I get myself to be the highest enrolled school in the next class down? And that's where I decided if I wanted all boys or I want boys and girls, based on how it would help. How do I get to be that biggest school in the next group down? And it's a little bit like the discussion that we're going to have in a minute. That Michael heard this the other day at a meeting, that everybody can probably agree when you put pins on a map, they agree this looks really good, and then we'll put names on the pins. Nobody agrees. So we can get you that. I just need to know what else you think you might be interested in. If just the sheer number of people, what's the span and how many people are impacted, that's pretty easy. Because we've got the data from last year and the year before that would not tell us anything about
I think that, and just like I said, the biggest difference, like Zub said, probably 30% is, you're probably talking that difference. Either way, right? Either way. Boys over girls or girls, you know what I mean? So, because if it ever, just the biggest difference that we're talking about, and who, and the number that would move.
The interesting thing that David would have in his area this next time that we've never had to deal with before is the doubling of the enrollment of a single gender public school.
Well, I was just sitting
We've
there
never had
thinking,
to deal with that.
if I was at a school in here like somebody else is in here, I'd be thinking about bringing a boy in and enrolling him in school so that I didn't have to double my enrollment for classification purposes.
Give Don any idea.
Student body, so that we don't have to double our enrollment for classification.
I wouldn't even want to go down that road. But seriously though, I mean, you got some Class A football team
Well,
that can be Class 4A football team. I mean, on a regular basis. So I mean, it's not really a matter of how many kids you got enrolled in school. It's how well you have your program.
No, you're right.
Oh, the other part of this, the other bullets is one last time, because there was a couple of people that after the July meeting wanted me to ask this question again. Are there other parameters that you want to try to look at? Because that part of that heading on that talks about non-resident students. You know, if you've been to the national meetings, you know that the two big issues that their boards spend most of their time dealing with are classification, especially when they classify every sport differently. They don't just classify schools. They do football one way, they do track another. It becomes, that's all they do. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. There are probably a third of our states that add a factor to a single gender, to a private school, because they don't have a boundary. Usually that factor has been 1.3 to 1.35 is the most common one, but they'll multiply that out to make it more apples and apples. So one of the questions came up, well, some of the independent districts are benefiting greatly from 563. Should they be treated more like a non-public school if they have that much of a percentage that's non-resident? We just need to know what data we need to be trying to dig up. If everybody just wants to do sheer enrollment, that's the easy piece. Because the success factor is the other thing. That any idea you had about classifying them all the same way gets blown up if you do success factor. Because in general, the same schools are not successful at everything. They're successful at one, which might bump them up, but they're not real successful in this one. So is there any other factor? This is the only time, because this is the time we do the two sports the same year, which is track and football.
Do other states look at the percentage of students that are outside the district that transfer into something one way or the other?
No, it's mostly just about residents, things they can verify.
That's non-resident. That's what I meant. Non-resident.
Yeah, if you're not talking about transfer in athletics, you're talking about non-residents.
The number of non-residents.
Louisiana's probably the most prominent one, because they consider their select and non-selected. They're divided into two groups, and they think if you select in your admission, so if you're a private school, or if you take a certain percentage of people that are outside your district, you're in that group.
Yeah.
Or if you're just a true regular school that only takes what's given to you and you don't have that percentage, you're the other group. So far, they haven't had to litigate. It's lasted about 3 years, but that's the one that jumps to mind.
Is that information readily available? I mean, to see.
You have to further states?
No, for Kentucky. I mean, to be able to pull the number of
It's
residents.
right now, my understanding is it's reported by, the schools are responsible for keeping track of it. Marty, tell me if I go wrong. Schools keep track of it, but it's really by district. It's how it's published. Am I correct? Yeah, so every school will be affected equally. And it really is gonna, if you were ever to think about the non-resident deal, it really gets muddy in Jefferson County, where you have at least three countywide magnets. How would you count that? What is their actual boundary? It could get, I keep thinking of Greg keeps, every time I talk to him about this topic, we talk about keep it simple. You're 119 counties, you might be able to keep it simple. There's one that we count.
In Fayette County would be another example, because you've got Fayette County schools that very rarely pretty much like Jefferson.
Yep.
I think we've simplified it the last few years. I don't know why we would want to complicate it again.
That's nobody knows any other motivating factors. We can get the economic factor data, but which is one thing that the superintendent Casey County suggested after the last football alignment. But I think, as you know, that's still by district too. So it would, and I think we could all agree that, especially in certain metro areas, you're not going to have the same true economic impact on schools in the west side of Louisville that you do in the east side of Louisville, even if it is the countywide factor. So
The group I was in at Chicago, that's what a couple of them, the economic factor was what they were using.
right. Minnesota has like 12 factors, and they take a year and a half to do their classification. You can engineer this however you want to. That's your all. The one thing you all have total jurisdiction over is the competition rule, and classification is part of the competition rules. You don't have to have a vote of anybody. You don't have to have a regulation of anybody. That's really board.
So what do you need to know? You need to know.
It sounds like all I'm hearing is take a 2-year look at the enrollment, get you all I don't want to say standard deviation, but we can just do standard. What's the biggest gaps? Who's the most and who likely would be impacted?
Straight enrollment
and just enrollment.
Double factor for single.
That's what needed. Thank you.
3.1.2.2 football alignment process review.
We'll try to have we'll get you those other things out so you can look at them. But until we get numbers, we're pretty stable. If you hear people that are making requests, I actually have a geographic request that came by email today. So it's obviously not germane right now. But if you hear things that we need to keep in the hopper, our job is to prepare. The office will prepare you a draft based on the parameters you've given, and then once we get the enrollment numbers, it should play out. Ideally, we have it to you for in draft in January, put it out for comment. February, we adopt, they can start scheduling. Now, that's ideally, because it could also be that you put it off until April or May. Last time, we had very few people wanting to come and speak. Butch and I can tell you, we've had times that we had to rent a room at the hotel, a meeting room, because of all the people that were suggesting feedback. So, kind of been. And the same thing on track will mirror that same timeline, because till we get the enrollment numbers, we can't do anything. Right now, it's last year and this year for football, the last 4 years, including this year for track. If you don't go to this deal, we'll resynchronize.
All right, 3.1.2.4, the recommended motion is to accept the presentation and direct any necessary action from discussion with data brought back to the next meeting. 3.1.3.1, the Frankfurt request of moving from Region 11 to Region 8.
This is just for the record. This was public comment at the Spring Board of Control meeting. The request by Superintendent Satterley at Frankfurt. The board is not taking any action on it. We published that this was going to be a discussion, but probably if there's no sentiment to look at this, because it is certainly not geographic in nature, then we need to be prepared in November to make a decision and let her know and let everybody know, because there's other arguments and discussions you may have that are kind of wanting to see if there's any sentiment. You remember hers was financially based a lot, and we did a lot of research, and Frankfurt is a very unusual situation because they have, from a finance standpoint, they have virtually no property they own. 70% of the property is owned by the government, state government. So it's not like a change in their property taxes will suddenly help their revenue, because they don't own any. So it's a totally different situation, but I've not heard any feedback wanting to pursue that, wanting to find out other things from her. So we just probably need to put that on the agenda in November, unless you all have other things you want us to keep looking at.
Right, 3.1.3.2, basketball alignment discussion on Foundation Christian's request.
Well, interestingly enough, we had a change in personnel at one of our small, newer member schools, and the opinions that might have been shared during the 4th Region realignment discussion 2 years ago are not shared by the new athletic administration. You have a letter in your folder or in your online materials where they've made a request. If my memory's right, Greg, help me with the numbers. They're asking to move from 14 to 13. We have not had. Greg has encouraged, and I have too, in correspondence with those folks, to get together. So what do you all think about it first? So I suspect that there'll be some kind of feedback by the time we meet in November. The timeline on basketball changes is to complete them by January, according to your all's adopted practices you've been doing. Because basketball alignment dominoes to so many other sports. It affects volleyball, it affects baseball, it affects softball. And it can affect soccer, although there's fewer teams play. So you need to finalize those, but at this point, they are asking to be moved. I'll leave it to you to decide the compelling nature of what they wrote. We have been at the board's request. Staff is very resistant when people start bringing competition into their request, that they just can't compete, et cetera. We've tried to stick to geography and as much as we can, geography. So I don't think there's anything else on that.
I'm meeting with those schools next week and,
Okay, good.
3.1.3.3 basketball alignment discussion on the 8th region.
Well, because it dovetails into the 8th region, let me also say the move requested by Foundation does not create a 6-3 like the move 3 years ago when Trimble County requested the move did. Okay, that was one of the reasons we're where we are today with the 8th region is the two districts got together and they all decided, hey, with 9-0, we favor this move. And they created a 6-3 that now the rest of the region's concerned about. So it's different down there. So be sure you know. 8th to 11, just we have thank you for 3 board members that also attended, but there was a meeting in Henry County High School a couple of weeks ago. I think they said it's one of the first times their ADs have had every school represented at a meeting. So obviously they knew the basketball alignment was being discussed. Mr. Phillips and Ms. Harold and Mr. Courtney were there as well. And there's been discussion for 2 or 3 years now about what would happen if the new school, Cornerstone Christian, located just it's probably less than a mile from Shelby County, what would happen if they started competing? Well, now they have 3 sports that they desire to play in postseason. We have tentatively placed them. The board policy statement is that if one school is new and gets placed, office takes care of it for a year, and then we bring it back to the board for long-term solutions. Putting them into the geographic district puts too many teams in that district. If my numbers are right, there's 19 schools, and it's 6-6-4-3 right now, even because it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to have Cornerstone pass by some other schools. Yeah. So that meeting that day was for 2 purposes: to tell them a little bit about the history, and that history document is in there. There is a history of the alignment in the 8th region. There is still some heartburn about a realignment piece that was done when Frankfort Christian and Great Crossing both became eligible to play postseason the same year. And the districts around Scott County already had 5 teams. There was a 4 in Richmond, another 5, and suddenly they were going to have 6 in that district. So they bumped Woodford County to go with their neighbors in Anderson County and be over there in the 8th. There's still heartburn about that. The board member who was on here at that time was from Woodford County, but it recused from all the voting. So all the technicalities were good, but it still left some angst. But those 2, Frankfort Christian and Great Crossing, came in the same year to be eligible. So that's what caused the board to have to move some people. What we tried to do that day, I think that, and I shared this with both Claudette, and I had another conversation with Brian before, but Michael and Claudette lately, the one thing they agreed to is they don't like 6 teams and 3 teams. So they think there needs to be a resolution there. And they think they'd rather have the first shot at fixing it. Now that's kind of where they left it. I think there's probably a group that would like to move somebody out of there. And the domino effect of what that would cause is a concern to some people. Again, the competition rules are the board's to do. There's a pretty easy 2-school move that would make those districts up there 5, 5, 5, and 4. But it's only easy if you're not involved. It's not so easy, if you're one of those 19 that's all afraid of moving. So they had a good discussion, and they were to meet. I have had at least, I think it was 7 of them in the last 2 weeks that called. They have another meeting, I believe it's next week. And everybody that's called claims they've got the votes, but they all have different solutions they claim they have the votes for.
Well, I guess that's probably at the root of there's 2 plans that have probably been presented that they're going to bring back to the table next week.
Yep.
one of them is keeping everybody in the eighth, and one of them is, trying a suggestion to move a school out for geography reasons. So can they come to a conclusion? I have no idea if they'll come to that conclusion next week. I think Commissioner left that meeting saying, look, if you all can't handle it, we will. Basically, I don't want to speak for him, but like if you all can't figure out and bring us a proposal, we'll have to just decide it in this room, I guess. So I guess that's where we stand right now. I think the meeting is next Thursday is when they plan on getting back together back at Henry County High School. And it's one of them things, everybody's got a different answer is the scary part about it, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see I guess we'll see the taste of both of them plans and what they have. I know that's the only two that's been received by the eighth region direct, the head athletic director that runs all that. So if any other plans pop up, I guess they'll be presented as well. But I know it's been on the table for a couple of weeks and they've received basically two.
Do you have a thought?
Do I have a thought? Yeah, I have a thought. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when I came into this 4 years ago, the talk was football realignment and all the like how brutal it was and I think when I came in, I think Commissioner was really, I think we kind of started, it was all talk of geography. It wasn't like he brought the map last week. Like he brought it up on the screen and you see the eighth region and it kind of speaks for itself, right? So I think their stance on geography, I think has water. I think it holds water. I think, they see just in their eyes, they see that there's a school that travels 45 miles to 3 different district opponents, and they could be traveling 15 miles to the entire, so I think they see it from that perspective, right, wrong, or indifferent. I think for me, that's where we have to stand our ground on something. And I think that map speaks volumes when you look at it. And I learned that through the football process, to be honest with you. So, but I also know that would probably mean trickle out at least another region and probably multiple districts in that region. So there's no easy move. There is a little bit of heartburn as to, some of that does come from a little bit of that. I don't think a lot of people think it's competition driven, and I don't think it is. I think everybody's still been pretty competitive in our region, that we didn't have a school come in that's dominated everything. So I think I just think they have a valid point on geography is what I hear the most. And that's probably where I would stand too.
The interesting thing about it, and I am not going to be argumentative, but it is my job to challenge you all to be sure you thought through things. Yeah. There's not a one of you that can look at your regional alignment and not see two schools that are somewhat close to each other that are in different regions, but yet they're still close to each other. There's always going to be a dividing line. So geography is always going to be in the eyes of the beholder. What the board stance on geography has been is, am I passing one to get to the other? Because there has to be a dividing line. And whether you draw the circle here or use a thicker marker and draw it here, you've got teams that everybody's going to be able to defend their position. That's what you got to be prepared for. The question for you all, the fundamental question that comes down to is, do you have a reason to alter other regions? And if you do, how far do you want to go? That's the fundamental piece. Because you're not going to be able to make that one school move for one out of there without being ready to address 14 others. It's just going to open the door. If you want the door open, fine. But just understand that because it's funny, everybody wants to look at it till they see they might be affected. I can tell you the interesting thing about this one is the 3-team district has no problem with 14 coming in. Not a one. Not a one school says don't bring a 14 in. But everybody else, is it a way to fix what they think's a mistake before? Or is it a way to do that? It just happens. It's how schools ended up in different regions. It's how the board, when they did the wholesale basketball realignment, Powell County was not in the 14th until all of a sudden the superintendent came in and publicly argued with his own principal, and suddenly they were back in the 14th. When you start moving people out of regions, just be ready. That's all. We'll do whatever you tell. Just be ready. And you can feel like you're by God and do what you want to do. You have that authority. But you want to be sure, are you fixing a problem? And if that's the case, fix it. But you got to remember that you're running out of options with our number of schools. I was sharing this with Damon and Greg earlier. 64 districts, 4 teams each. In theory, that should be 256. You only got 290, and all of them don't play basketball. So there's very little room to move people. We don't have, to my knowledge, I can't think of a region that has 20 that compete in most sports, which you would be creating if you move another team into the 11th, for example. So who moves out? That's the domino effect if you think about it. And that's what you got to, think about. It's easy to say, well, I can move 2 schools, but which 2? So do you take the school that's direct point to point closest? Do you take this road? Because I can tell you, I know the situation in one of the districts in the 8th, because this was discussed before, that it depends on which path you choose to take, whether they're closer or not. So if I leave Anderson County and go this way, I'm closer to this one. But if I go the other way, because they happen to have a lot of roads that connect it. Same thing you had in other regions. The only time we did a wholesale realignment in the last decades was because the 9th region had I think they had over 30 schools in the 9th region. And they finally said, we've got to fix this. And it put everybody else right. You got to decide. It's nothing we can't handle. Tell us what you want to do. We can map it out. I know you probably, as I think the 3 of them found out, you probably don't want to throw it open to AI because you're going to upset a whole bunch of people because there's a whole bunch of people to move. Because, no matter how good your prompts are, it's not going to probably look like it does now. And we saw last year, I think, David, I think you and Donna would agree that you can use the perfect maps and still aren't going to get people to agree.
I'm still smiling, thinking about the 8th region meetings. Already know.
Yeah.
Larry said it earlier. Everybody may agree on, maybe they will agree on the regions. They will never agree on the districts.
No. And there's 2, this particular one has 2 schools that can move and solve the whole thing and never move anybody out of the region. But it just depends on what other factors come in.
Got to come down to the board to make that decision. They're not going to be able to figure that on their own.
Yeah, well, they got a meeting next week, and one AD said it's 14-5 in favor of his plan. I don't think he's talked to the same 5 I have, because the best I can get is about 11-8. So if it's if it's anything like my luck, it's going to be 50-50. It's going to end up right back here anyway. You might as well just plan on it.
I think you're right. Like, I think a lot of it depends on how they vote.
Yeah, I told Michael, I said, if they take it secret ballot, they may get consensus on the first ballot. If they got to look at each other, see, that's what I hate about tomorrow, because we've had so much going on and so many problems. We could not successfully test our electronic balloting system, so we're going to be voting paddles tomorrow. That will change how the vote turns out. I'm hoping.
Is Darien County?
He's got the largest group.
Struggled last year.
Well, hopefully you'll stop talking and keep your hand up long enough for me to get back.
These are little laughs. Different.
I'll see you tomorrow. Hey Terry, wait a minute. Okay, man.
Nice job, Dave. That's pretty good. We need a little evidence. That's good. So we will respond to whatever they come up with next week, and if they're unable to reach agreement, it'll be an agenda item for the board to take on in November.
All right, 3.1.3.4 recommended motions to accept presentations and direct any necessary action for discussion. 3.1.4 lacrosse end of game procedures, overtime and margin.
Well, we made a decision in August. It's interesting. Can't even find that it happened but once last year. But in doing what was suggested to us by some people that have been around lacrosse a bit, kind of engage the lacrosse community again, which they're going to get engaged about most anything you do. But I think the thought is we're meeting with several states that have pretty strong lacrosse in the next few days. We'll get you some more information. We may ask you to reconsider the discussion on the game ending procedure. But what I do want you to look at between now and September or November, we can export our scores, and so we did an analysis of the margin of victory in our lacrosse games. Pretty extreme. And most of the most of the states have adopted some form of ending procedure that lets you, gosh, you hate to call it, what, we'll still call it a game ending rule. Yeah, mercy rule, et cetera. There's provisions in it, but the two genders different, and it's a game ending procedure, so you can do it differently in each state. But one of them has to wait till the end of the third quarter, and in some cases that could be 25 already. So I know you've had discussions with them. I think because it's a nothing burger was the expression I was trying to think of, but we worried so much about the whole tiebreaker, and ties just didn't happen last year. So maybe it's better to walk away from that one, but address the margin.
Yeah, just some quick math for you on boys side. 15 plus point differential in the game. We had 119 games. And on the girls side, we had 128 games in the 15 or more. So I think it's something we need. And I think when you look at who's in these regions and for lacrosse, a lot of them aren't playing each other unless they have to at the end because of that. And I think that would help on both ends. You know, if we were to give them a different option for a game meeting procedure, so we're not having the number one team playing somebody who just started a program.
And ironically, on the big stage, our state championship last year, they were very gracious to each other. We had a team that could have scored 50 goals. A match that it was just really bad, and they did not. They called off the dogs early, and that was helpful. But the sportsmanship issues around games. It's why we have a 10-run rule now. It's why we have a running clock in football and basketball. At some point, you can't take a chance. So we'll be bringing that back to you. That's why this is in section 3. We bring back to you. We'll have the section 2 people, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania. They have a lot of more veteran lacrosse teams. They kind of been through some of this, and we can talk to them in a social or small meeting section and get a lot more detail than maybe we could get back.
So we presently don't have anything built in.
Just what's adopted in the rules. Okay. Running clock after third period, is that girls? One of them's third period and one of them's after.
Certain amount of goals, isn't it?
After
5, I want to say.
That's different on both genders, but there's no just stop the game.
Okay.
It's just a running clock.
Yeah, I think it's after 5, but I'll check.
Yeah, there's a place that starts running. But we want to find out what states that have had lacrosse a lot longer than we have, what they're really doing, because this does get to be a sportsmanship issue. Probably more on the boys' side, but it does get to be a sportsmanship issue.
The only other thing to consider is they are only the same by name only. The name is the only thing the same about these two sports.
Yeah, there's nothing says they have to be the same.
What might fit one may not fit the other.
Nothing says they have to be the same. Yeah, you said that a year ago, and boy, were you prophetic. The only thing they have in common is the word lacrosse.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, jumping ahead to section 4. 4.1.1, consider triennial survey results on the shot clock.
Just the data is back presented. You all tabled that motion in August, so you have technically not acted on the triennial survey. So you need to take some form of action. And you have the school by school vote. We circulated that, published it as you wish.
So I was the one that asked to have this tabled back in August. I guess my first question before I make a plea or a push for it is, do you have info from other states that have already enacted the shot clock, whether it's gone well, not gone well, they're glad they did it, they wish they hadn't done it?
We would have nothing subjective. We've got plenty of objective. Do they do it? When do they do it? What's their time? What's their margin? But to have a qualitative review of what they thought.
But even just comments from other states that are doing it?
It has been so sporadic. What are we up to now? 28? Yeah. It's been so sporadic as they've adopted. There's not been a lot of collusion and talking. It's been almost 2 years since all the basketball people met in person anyway. So when we talked about the summer meeting, most everybody that, even the ones that are listed as having adopted it, are not until probably 26, 27. You've got that core group that started early. The issue has everywhere has been staffing at the table, but we have not had, as we talk among section 2 people, at least the directors, nobody's had any games postponed because they couldn't get a shot clock operator. It just, maybe it is a little more difficult. Maybe as one of you put, your AD's got to do a little work to find somebody.
I did a little asking around, and almost everybody I talked to, all the ADs I talked to, it with the exception of one school, it was the reason, because everybody but 4 schools in Region 1 and 2 voted no. They said they voted no strictly except for the one because it's a managerial issue, because in buying the shot clock and finding and being comfortable with somebody running it. Trigg County is doing a gym renovation, so they went ahead and their AD, I talked to him, they went ahead and priced putting one in. It's $5,500 through whatever company it was that to put mounted above the goals with the timer. So we're not a portable system, but one that's installed. $5,500 for the shot clock. The issue so primarily is having somebody run it.
And I don't think it's just about getting somebody to run it. From what I get in my region, it's like we get someone to run our football shot clock, but they probably mess up a third of the
running
time.
it correctly.
Nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to the football shot clock. But in basketball, especially the 15th region, I can tell you this: first time they didn't hit that button and something goes off. I mean, you talk about, oh my goodness! I mean, you talk about World War III in a basketball gym, and I can promise you. I mean, I just know from our standpoint.
So the number one roadblock that I've found when I talk to people in my 2 regions is along the same lines. ADs are worried about finding somebody to run it, and I've spoken with basketball officials that are worried about somebody not knowing how to run it. So the suggestion came up from the 12th Region Athletic Director, and I'll throw this out. Do any other states basically hire a 4th official to work the shot clock at a reduced rate? Maybe a JV official that you pay to stay, or a varsity official that is no longer physically able to get up and down the floor, and you pay them $50 or $60 a night to be the shot clock.
You find several of them in Section 3, which is the SEC states to the south of us, that will pay that retired official. It's generally 70% of what the normal rate is for an official. And matter of fact, Tennessee, they assign it from the state office. They're a little bit more micro control, but they've at least got a fee set up.
Right.
Because I think we might be surprised around the room how many people are not paying anybody that's working their games. They've always worked it, and they volunteer. But this is one of those it's probably a paid position.
There is one thing I'd like to add that actually just come up that I got from my coach and a discussion with some other people there, and I know you and I have even talked. I mean, we played a pretty good pace. I mean, as far as it not being such an issue, but I do think that and I'm kind of in the middle on this. I see pros and cons both sides with the shot clock, but I do think the one thing in Kentucky, and this was brought to my attention, I think it makes a lot of sense. We pride ourselves on the one state champion, and the fact that in basketball, it is geographic. Everybody moves forward to get to the 16 teams to the state tournament. And the idea of inserting the shot clock, I think you might not have a Lyon County. And I know during the season they were scoring a lot of points, but in the Great Crossing game, I don't know that Lyon County necessarily wins if they don't have great ball handling and can the last 4 minutes of the game can manage the clocks the way that they want to in situations. It adds an element of coaching to the situation that you don't have outside of that, and it kind of levels a little bit of that playing field over teams that may have 2,000 students and can just absolutely get, So I don't know. I mean, that side of it was brought to my attention. I did a lot of thinking on that, and I don't know. I mean, there is one part of that to think you would hate to make a decision that 20 years from now you look back and go, wow, now we have a class system in basketball, because it seems like most everybody who does in basketball at least likes the fact that we have the greatest show on earth in Rupp Arena every year, and that we bring people from the east to the west all together in one location to play. And if you have class systems, you don't have east to west representation in your state tournaments. I don't know.
I want to jump a little bit of what you're saying, and just from personal experiences, I watched Reed Shepherd, and this is no knock on the Association of Oral State because I think we got great kids. Association. I watched Reed Shepherd playing Ronnie James, and the announcer said, "Kentucky not known for for the talent coming out of that state."
Right.
He said that on ESPN. I took my son to a college coach, and he said, "It's not your fault that the basketball is not good in your area," and that hurts me to the core.
And you and I talked about that. I
But then
agree
when you
with that
look
point.
and you think, okay, college coaches, come watch our kids play, come to Sweet 16, watch us play, because Calipari didn't send anybody to watch Noah play, right? But in that same tournament, we had a 6-minute delay offense. That was so. What advantages are we giving our kids?
I think for
with that
a little
platform?
while, it's going to be that way, but eventually the middle school and elementary school, they're going to coach up to play that faster pace. I mean, I think that's something that you got to consider. It might be that way for a little bit, but eventually
Well,
they'll adjust.
and I see what you're saying. The point made to me was, which I thought about, was Lyon County scored over 100 points several games. But when you got to state tournament in a situation where you had good ball handling, there is a coaching element that you will be able to, and it wasn't a 6-minute delay, but you would, at the end of a game, there's that. And like I said, that's the pro and con to this whole thing. That's why you can go back and forth forever.
I know the majority of the kids aren't going to play in college, but it is a transition in college and making that adjustment, especially point guards. So having dealt with that before, kids who don't know how to manage a shot clock, it's a big adjustment for guards at that next level to figure that out.
It's interesting you say that because the feedback before we had email and you could survey about every 5 minutes, we had advisory committees. And even back then, and some of the people that were on those talk about on the girls basketball side, will have regularly said that their opinion of the shot clock varies with the ability of their point guard.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been real consistent in that, and that makes sense.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I could see, if you've got a
Especially
really
girls
good one,
basketball, you're right.
you got a
That could
really
be
good one. I
the
don't care about
issue for
shots.
point
They're in
guards
control.
handle the ball. It could be
And that's true probably for either gender, but the girls' coaches were more consistent saying that.
Well, I mean,
We're going to do it this year.
I know like a lot of people, their reservation is, having somebody manage the shot clock. I know just from personal experience, Terry and I mean, we spend lots of time like in travel ball tournaments with our own kids that play with shot clocks, and they have young kids that are working the clock and the shot clock at the same time and rarely have any issues where they have to stop the game and reset the shot clock or refs have to come over. I mean, it's rare.
In football, and I've even seen it in basketball, in some of these travel tournaments where the referee is operating the shot clock. They have one referee designated with the remote, and he operates the shot clock. And I don't know if that's. I know they're doing it in football though, right? The referee does the
one of
clock.
the deep
And maybe you pay them a little bit more. You can get that technology eventually. But I did not see any. How many states have gone to the shot clock?
Well, it's right at 28 to 30. Last numbers we saw.
They haven't all enacted. No,
Correct. It's not
started,
enacted yet.
It's been adopted by 32 associations.
Yeah. In some form or fashion.
And they're not
How
going
many
to be
seconds are
they're
they
not going
saying?
back.
And that's my argument is, I'm not pushing for it for us to be the first to do it. If I was to push it for a vote, I wouldn't say for next year. I'd say for 27, 28 at the varsity level only. At a certain point, if we don't do it, it's going to become mandated. Do we want to be one of the last 5 or 6 states that has it forced upon us because we wouldn't modernize our game when everybody else was?
How many seconds are the states doing?
35.
35 is what you have to do until it's a national rule. The states that came in before, New York had 40, somebody else had 40, but the ones that had it before didn't have to do that. Anybody's adopted it since it's 35.
And I think the concern of finding qualified people to run it can be addressed by putting an official there. The only negative that I've heard that I don't know how to address is the cost factor, because you got to buy the clocks, you got to install them, and then you got to pay somebody to operate it. I don't have a magic wand.
But if you forecast it out
Yeah.
What's that?
A year and a half in advance.
Sure.
We'll have a year and a half to get it up there.
Well, and admittedly, you heard this in the regional meetings, that these same schools that are paying 15 grand for huddle will find the clock.
I don't think expense is a barrier for anything. I mean, you just have to, like you said, the budget for it. I think the quality of the person running it will be important. Getting somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's what you're deciding. We're adopting it. We already. That's a good question.
We used it, and I don't know if Troy ever sent you the stats,
Yep,
but we
he did.
used the shot clock last year for the LIT. We had permission to use it. I don't even know if the shot clock went off the entire tournament. Maybe just a couple of hours.
Be expected up there.
Well, and that's
What's your
available
thoughts on
to
girls?
any event, any agreed upon event or game right now.
Yeah, right now they can.
It's
They can
available
do
to
it.
anybody.
In the district, you could not have gained proceeding.
So
Right.
something that was asked up here, because I violated my own rule of sidebar, but if you, what you're trying to decide today is if yes, then when. But everything else is kind of determined by the timing of the clock. It would be, yes, it'd be for everybody at the varsity level if you do what Damon's talking about and give the year, and then you're done. Because everything else, the rules play out. If you adopt, here's what you do. You don't have a whole lot of things to decide.
I mean,
I
I
think
think
the only thing
I think we should adopt it. I mean, when we've traveled tournaments, they have it, like, you don't even know it's there.
Right.
Like, it very rarely comes into play, and it helps. I mean, it makes us look like we're being progressive and not waiting for somebody to tell us to do it. Like,
And I would argue, Noel, that it forces more coaching in the last few minutes of a game than less. I mean, for one, offensively, even if you have the lead, you've still got to try to figure out how to score because you can't hold the ball for 2 minutes. Defensively, you can reward the team for playing good defense instead of saying, well, we have to foul because if not, they're just going to run the clock out. So to me, there's tons of benefits for the game itself.
Like I said, I'm not
No, I know.
Yeah, I see both. I see the pros and cons. I mean, on both sides of it. I'm not.
And as David said, like, if you have a shot clock, it's rare that you have shot clock turnovers in basketball. Like, it's an issue, but it doesn't happen as often.
Usually happens on a shot that's missed and doesn't touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the violations. Are I shoot a 18 foot or 15 footer from 18 feet away. So you're in work session, if I'm correct. So without objection, you would move this to the regular meeting and then say what you're gonna do.
Motion if you want to.
Is there a motion to move it forward?
Yeah.
Motion by Dave, second by Don.
Okay.
So do we need to draw up what it will actually look like, or will we do that?
It's just 2 sentences because everything else is prescribed in the rule. You need to decide if and when.
All right.
So nobody objected. We'll move forward.
4.2.1 review and possible revisions to the competition rules for regional tournament formats.
You'll notice this is one of the 2 things that did not have a recommended motion because we needed to hear the presentations this morning and we needed to hear what you all wanted to do. Right now, the board policy is you cannot have an experimental regional format with more than 16 teams. That's what you adopted in 2008. You don't have to keep it that way. You can open it up to let everybody they can do as they wish, and we try them experiment. What we did with the 15th, they had a 3-year period. We said we're going to evaluate it after the 3rd year. This is the 3rd year, so we'll see how it goes. But if you're going to have to decide, is that cutoff at 16 still what you want to do? Is the sole purpose to help the smaller regions so you don't have to ship somebody in to the alignment, which didn't work, or is there another reason why? Is standardization important? That's the meaty issue of this one. It's not anything at all about which format they use. This is just, do you let more schools, bigger regions do it?
I mean, I said earlier, rarely, I think this board is, since I've been on it, has tried to lean on local people making decisions that best fits their regions or districts And rarely, like I said, have we had the consensus in a region on any topic that the sixth region has had on the format of those regions and the results of it after the fact. The fact that we had this consensus after the first round of it has occurred is amazing. Like we don't agree on anything half the time. I think I know I told Julian this on the phone. Probably when basketball comes into play, it maybe perks some people's eyes up and gets more attention to it. I think if that region 11 club never even said anything about changing their basketball region, nobody never really even cared about what the six wanted to do with their volleyball and their soccer tournaments. We'd have been like, yeah, go ahead and do those things. But as soon as one basketball region came up, it perked up some interest and some ears in here. I lean towards letting the local groups. We're in the seventh region. We're not going to do it. I think our intention right now in the seventh is to stay like we've always done it. But we also can see the sixth region and that they've had success and that everybody's happy. And if they're happy doing it and they still produce a single regional champion and a district champion, and there's 2/3 majority vote, which is what you suggested, I don't know why we would get in the way of that. But if we look back and have regret, we can always come back and revisit. I'm assuming, right? Hey, you know what? We gave this latitude.
It's hard to let the toothpaste out of the tube and put it back in.
And they didn't come to a majority, correct?
Well, it was all voted on as a whole.
But the 11th did not have the tooth.
That's what I'm saying. They didn't have it, correct?
But they've never had a vote on just the bracket.
Just the format.
So what you would hope would happen today, it would be prescriptive to people. If you want to do something, so let's play this out an option. Regardless of the number of teams, if you want to do a different bracket format, it requires a 2/3 vote.
Is there a length? Is there a minimum amount of length you'd have to do, or could you just do it 1 year at a time? Or would you?
Well, what you did in the first region with soccer, you gave them a 3-year approval. They bailed after a year. Yep. They can always opt out and go back to the default condition.
So is it better to build in a window so that this board can review and maybe change course?
You hardly ever want to. We haven't found it wise to make qualitative judgments on changes after the first time.
Right.
You probably want to set a window. They decided, heck with it. It was too confusing. They would just go ahead and tell us to move a team, and they're 4-4, and we haven't heard another word. Chad, have you got a word? First region?
Not a word.
I mean, but I think it's the ultimate in a local control thought. It's just, do you want it all standard? And the question, if you want it standard, is does it matter how they pick their one as long as they only get one? That's the question you got to ask. I don't know. This is a philosophical debate.
For us, would we have to make sure that the region agrees to the format? Like if we're going to stay out of it and let it be local, 11th should have done a survey based on that bracket, then came to us for us to acknowledge versus kind of going backwards from it.
We would not be acting on the 11th request because if you pass it requiring 2/3, they don't have that.
That's right.
That doesn't mean they couldn't come back with it.
That's right.
But we got to force them to do. They're going to do it locally. It's just like most of the other decisions in the competition rule. It's 2/3.
I agree.
I tend to lean on if anybody gets to do it, everybody should get to do it.
So if that region votes, like you said, if that's what they want to your point.
Would it be specific to each sport? Soccer, 9th region soccer, volleyball, baseball? They could all have different ones if they wanted to, and we would have to approve that. If they got if we got 2/3 of vote in the 9th soccer, 9th region soccer, volleyball, baseball, softball could come here.
Well, I can speak for 15. Like I said, we initially wanted to try this for basketball. We've already had volleyballers reach out. I would think the thing would be if you've done your experimentation and it works, like it's working in our region, if you want to apply the same format to other sports, you should be allowed to do that. You know what I'm saying? If it's the same, because basically a volleyball tournament is just exactly like a basketball tournament, as far as that goes within that region. But I still think that, like, Dave said, I think the local decision making, especially if you set the 2/3 level, I mean, you're creating the opportunity for the local group to look at their specific situation with things.
In the larger districts, do you see a problem with getting officials to do the bracket format? Let's say the 11th had the 2/3 vote. Is official coverage sufficient in that bracket match where they wouldn't have an
That's where
issue?
they have to address it with scheduling. They might not be able to in a 19 or 20 team region play all the same night,
Right.
but that's exactly why you all first went to the district regions hosting years ago, or district winners hosting, was to spread out your officiating problems and not play the same night. That they'll have to adapt. That's got to be part. See, to me, to kind of thinking about Matt's question, you know, if the ninth region doesn't want soccer saying yes and baseball saying no, then the ninth region could say, guys, our vote is we're either all in or all out. They can kind of control that again locally. If they want to single out basketball on the 15th, then single out basketball on the 15th. Or, you know, however you want to do it. I think the more it's something that just watching you all discuss this one, it's like we want to give local control, but only a certain amount. And it's kind of a yes or no switch on the local control. Do we?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is the concern for everybody being all over the board,
right?
You know, as opposed to having some sort of sideboards on it.
Well, ironically, my worry is that right there cost us about $4,000 to get our bracket system rewritten because they went to crazy playing games and the way they do them and the way they only have 24 hours in between. Because that's the only, I'm just thinking logistically. Whatever you all, I think is whatever the locals want to do, but that's really.
I mean, I think as long as you're producing a regional champion and we're still continuing the format going on,
yep.
I can just speak in the 15th. And like I said, it is a little unique because of the 3-team districts that exist. And the geography is also crazy. And I mean, getting from point A to point B, you can look at our region and think it's close, but it's, I mean, just to go across Pike County is an hour and a half. And they're bordering districts. I mean, it's unbelievable because there's no straight roads. So, you know, there's a lot of unique factors, but I do like the idea of local decision making.
Would you build in like a review window? Would that be built into it that this would be reviewed after a certain?
Basically, how it's happened with 15 and now with 6 is, yeah, you got a 3-year trial, but we're going to review it every year. What didn't work? What were the problems? We've already adjusted. One of the problems with the 15th one that I've been very candid with Noel about before, their officiating group is so small that scratches factor into things if they use anybody local. And so we're going to have to give some schedule flexibility. They're ready to adjust. They'll adjust. They'll do whatever's necessary.
What
So
about
it may not be as necessary in 6 and 7.
What about stuff as simple or as detailed as it would have to be a single elimination tournament? Like guys,
Yeah.
Softball me remembers the double elimination tournaments popping up everywhere. With these regional tournaments have to be single elimination. You can have a regional tournament or however you determine it, but it must be single elimination or no, leave that alone. Or I don't know. I just don't know how hard a weed you get.
All right, let me ask you this question though. I mean, it would still be if the local group, because that's how the 15th is. So for local group, and same with the 6th, if they pass it, then it still comes to this board to decide. Okay, we'll give you the 3-year experimentation period. Correct?
Yeah, I would think you'd want them presented to you so you can see what's going on.
They would still. This is just not carte blanche.
Right. I think.
This group.
If there was something fundamentally flawed, the group could look at it and go, well, go back and redress this with your vote. We don't.
Well, I think that's why the 3-year window is important.
It's important.
It gives you time to build some data and work some
and make
things
corrections,
out.
make alterations,
Yeah,
make it good.
And it's still very hard to say true single elimination when you're still bringing district runners up. We hear that from people all the time.
That was funny because when I got interviewed about it, that was the first thing the guy said that, and I was like, well, as long as there's been basketball, I said, on our 4-year run, we lost district championship game 2 of the 4 years, and we went to state tournament. So our system already does not. Yeah, so it is funny when people make that argument. I'm like, that's not really true. I mean,
Was this as simple as what we're doing would remain the same, but the 15 or under threshold would be removed?
Yeah, that's what the way I see it is that you remove the 15 under threshold and everybody else can just
You
present.
have to have a 2/3 majority.
Yep. And we would want to put here's the logistical question. Do you want the board to approve or do you want the staff to approve? And what that will change is the deadlines. Right. Obviously, if you all got to consider it, they got to be much earlier than deciding in August they want to do volleyball and soccer. That won't work.
I think
Right.
Maybe early on it should be you all.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if what had been shared with you in advance with them, the six wanting to do soccer and volleyball, but it seems to me like there's no way you could seed out based on regular season games without already knowing that's what we were going to do
Yep.
before the
That's what I said. What you're affecting is the deadline. Because we would have to have it where you're almost going to have to approve anything for next fall by the May meeting if you all are involved. Because you'd have to have it, we're going to finalize their schedules versus if the office is doing it, we might be able to go into 1st of June, but it ain't gonna be much later. But those kind of operational details, I think early on, whoever's staffing it for you all is gonna be absolutely foolish not to be sharing what's going on. But, and hopefully be a clearinghouse, like don't even bring that one here. We got two problems here that the board's not gonna consider it, so. I think what you all need to decide is, do you want to change the 15 and under?
I think of a sport like baseball, I think it's eventually going to phase out all district tournaments because I think as soon as it starts to get adopted and people see it, and I can save my pitching for a week later, like
dramatically change the pitching.
District baseball tournament, like coaches they're going to vote for that of me. Like, no, I just want to go straight to a super regional and save my arm.
Yeah.
And I think Zoot mentioned that.
Changes your pitching if you.
So I think as a traditionalist and
and his point was right though, about the state tournament. It does mimic. That was interesting. It mimics the state tournament.
Yep.
So that's an interesting.
The baseball people jumped all over this.
Yeah,
because they could have two on right now.
Yeah, I love district tournaments.
All right. 15 or it doesn't make any difference.
So we're pushing that forward for us to vote.
Well, it would go forward anyway.
Okay.
I think the thing that we would want to do, if you're going to do this, then I think we've got to get another agenda item for the next meeting on what kind of guardrails are you looking for. I'm going to tell you, I'm scarred by the fact the board used to hear all the appeals. Because you only heard everything a couple of months and we've got people that are here every day that can address most of this if you all just give us the guardrails. But we need to develop those to try to do this. What are those?
I think that's what I struggle with is I know that this is exaggerating tremendously, but you could potentially have 16 different regions for how many different sports coming to you with different regional formats. And I know we've allowed it in the 15th and the 6th, but do we really want to open up that opportunity? That we're doing is sitting listening to proposals for.
Well, what I would suggest to you may come out of this is a above 16 and a below 16 option that we bring to you all. And these are the parameters, and they ask you, yes or no, do you want to do this plan?
And then the staff handles the red. You're saying so it's not just the board having the constant.
You all help the criteria. Maybe it's just down to two options, one for big, one for not so big. There's more flexibility on the not so big. Try to help on the revenue end. I think there's a way you can make this work, but you got to decide do you really want? Basically, is it 80, 16 regions, 5 bracketed team sports? Do you want them all to potentially have a different decision?
I think the thing I find interesting about the 6 regions, and like to his point, it fascinated me because I didn't know anything about it before, is the fact that they unanimously like this. So, I mean, it's kind of hard. I mean, I just look at it from a board perspective for us to go, hey, you all unanimously want to do something, but just because we don't agree, I don't know. I feel like there does need to be some local decision making in that if they can all come to an agreement like that. So, I don't know. I think it's fascinating.
I think this, and I don't want to beat a dead dog. The only reason baseball,
don't beat a dog.
That dog, bulldog, dead bulldog.
Oh, whoa! Against bulldogs.
Male bulldog. No,
You may have mixed the metaphor. Yeah.
But the only reason that baseball was brought in to this whole equation is because we did not. Softball's where it all started from the 6th. Yep. It purely led to the baseball region being pulled in and format changed. And it worked better than they could have ever imagined. So there wasn't any type of let's try to manipulate the format because that's what we want to do here locally. It was born out of the right intentions.
Yep.
And we did not feel like we could send softball out there with a change and not align the baseball with it. It just seemed like both of them needed to go or nobody. needed to go. They needed to go along with each other. So when they do volleyball, when they talk about soccer, probably in the sixth region, this girls soccer is the concerning format. They probably don't have as many girls soccer teams in the sixth as they do boys soccer teams, but they want to do both genders together. So I don't know if that would be part of the
Maybe that's part of the
consideration
guardrail.
that a
Yeah.
gender,
Absolutely.
because we did not want to send the softball group out there with something new and not send the baseball group with it. That was how it really started.
Well, let me clarify Region One. There were, what, 8 teams,
Yep.
Commissioner?
5 and 3.
And one of them was in and out.
Yeah.
So you're constantly, and the one that was out was in an imbalanced district that was smaller. So you were getting to the point where 2 teams automatically
5 and
made it
2.
out of their district
Yeah, they had
by
5 and
virtue
2.
of the numbers. And so it was a really unusual, special situation. And it surprised me that they didn't want to continue with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the 15th, we had 8, and we do the super region format, but we do just like the 6, in that we don't have district tournament because there's no reason. We had a 2-team district and a 4-5-team district or something, so it was like crazy to even try
I
to
was just
do it.
pointing that out because they had a reason to try something different, to include
I'm surprised they
everybody.
didn't want to keep it either because we like it a lot.
But they've gone back now and there's been a team move to another district to balance things out. So that's worked out.
All right, so we're gonna move this forward. Okay.
Sounds like it.
4.2.2 swimming state first round site approval.
I'm tired. Go ahead.
I'm tired.
Aqua House at 3:10. Sorry. 3:10 a.m. They said, well, good morning. So Abby, you want to tell us a little bit about your first and stuff?
Contacted, I believe the same sites we used last year. Is that correct? So, state first round, I contacted Bowling Green, for regions 1 through 3. So University of Louisville for 4 through 6 and Scott High for 7 through 9. They've all checked the calendars and dates and agreed to host that, for your all's approval for the states when the first round.
And diving would be at Scott High.
This year I reached out to our schools that are furthest away from Scott High to make sure, see if they have any feedback about that. I didn't hear any issues with travel.
So we're going to use the Henry Webb pool.
Be happy
So
about
that
that.
would be the
You'll
recommendation.
be happy about that.
Yeah, that's region.
Yeah, that's because, well, it's technically, that's not something to quibble about. We don't have enough to have true first round state.
Exactly.
So it's a nothing burger.
I did add in the notes, one of the positive developments is that I was working with some of our regions for region swim, to try to find facilities because we've had so many closures. And I do want to say, Center College has been very willing to help with that. And they're actually going to host for swim 6, 8, and 9. All their regions are going to be there, which is a big deal because they were struggling with facilities.
The recommended motion there is to accept the recommended state first round swim site as presented. 4.2.3 clarification on officials jurisdiction per NFHS rules.
I'm not really sure until 3 weeks of crappy weather, we realized how many different people were doing different things about when a game is a game for the purpose of paying officials. Basically, you're responsible. We've had the policy, it's state regulation. You're responsible for a game fee if gotten there and the game has started. Some associations, it was the plate meeting for baseball. Some, it was the first pitch. So we went back and did this chart for you. We're going to publish it to all our signers. Just wanted you to see it. But this is what the rule books say when the officials assume jurisdiction. So as soon as they assume jurisdiction, it's a game fee. It happens very seldom, but it happened about 12 times 2 weeks ago in one night. So, and we had a bunch of different people interpreting it different. We just want to be sure it's consistent. So remember, you've got, if you let them know before they have time to let them know before you leave, you're off the hook. You let them know while they're en route, 20% plus travel. You let them know once we've started, and that's what we're trying to clarify. It's exactly at start. Because there are people that for $10 were quibbling over were we 5 minutes before or 6 minutes before.
One said we hadn't thrown a pitch yet, so the game hadn't started.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they've gone through all the field stuff. They've done what the rule books say. So this lines us up with the independent contractor as it should be.
So all the ADs aware of this?
No, half the time it was an assigning secretary telling them.
Okay.
Actually went to a meeting a couple weeks ago where the assigning secretary told the of schools what the policy was, and that's kind of so far outside of their lane. I didn't even have a barrel to guide them back on the highway. But we already have the policy on cancellation and pay. We just needed to define what it's called. So just for your information.
So the recommended motions to concur with the interpretation and direct distribution. Item 4.3.1, review financial reports for July 1 to August 31 and approve continued working budget operations for 25-26.
Well, you can see basically the regular interval reports are attached. There's a recommendation that we increase the salary schedule by 3%. And then we do have some people that have title changes in there. We've talked to the board about that. We talked to the officers in the summer about it. It's not just title changes, duty changes. And we'd like to execute that with this budget approval. And it would take us, as I mentioned earlier, from about 24% to 26% on our payroll percentage, which is, I'm sure most schools would like to have a 26% payroll.
Recommended motions to accept the reports and approve the base percent adjustment salary schedule as recommended. Item 4.3.2, approve minutes of the July-August meeting. Anything? Okay.
Yeah. Unless you all know.
4.3.3, approve minutes of September 2nd, specially called meeting. That might be the longest work session I've been part of.
Yeah, we're blaming trivia.
Okay.
No, it ain't me.
That concludes the work session. How long do you guys need to be ready?
25, 220, 225?
225?
Yeah.
All right. So
tell them 220, hope 220.
Yeah. 220. We'll resume the full board meeting.